Trevor J. Sheehan and Bradford C. S. Lynch. Please come forward. While they're coming forward, sir, if you don't mind. These two recruits joined the department 1 year ago because of vacancies we had because of retirements and one resignation. They've worked very hard over the past year to attain this rank in third class. Trevor Sheehan was born in Dublin, Ireland. He's a naturalized citizen with the United States. He has studied engineering in Dublin. He's currently enrolled in CCRI and is working on his associate's degree for fire science. He is here this evening with his wife, Yvonne, and their daughter, Lily, and they are also expecting their second child. Brad Lynch. He is the son of Portsmouth Fire Chief Jeff Lynch. He is a graduate of Tiverton High School. He is also attending Bristol Community College, where he is also working on his degree in fire science. He is here tonight with his wife, Lauren, and their 3 children, Dakota, Jacob, and Hunter. I would ask now that the clerk would mind, or the president, I'm sorry, sir, would mind giving them the oath of office.
Gentlemen, repeat after me and state your name where I state mine. I, Donald Bolin, do solemnly swear that I will support, enforce and abide by the Constitution and laws of the United States of America and of the state of Rhode Island. That I will, in all respects, observe the provisions of the Charter and ordinances of the town of Tiverton, and will faithfully discharge the duties of firefighter third class for the town of Tiverton. So help me God. Thank you, gentlemen. Welcome aboard.
Firefighter's badge is something that's to be treasured. They've worked very hard over the past year to attain this rank and to be able to wear this badge. I know that they will proudly serve the town of Tiverton. And welcome aboard them. Tonight's consent agenda consists of the following items. Approval of the minutes from the regular council meeting, May 24, 2010. Receipt of minutes from the following boards and commissions. Open Space Commission, 2. Planning Board, 2. Harbor Commission, 5. Economic Development Commission, and the Arts Council. Correspondence received and filed. Resolutions received opposing mandatory binding arbitration legislation from North Kingston Town Council. From the Town of Richmond, supporting Rhode Island General Assembly amend Rhode Island General Law permits for DEM for municipally owned bridges culvert repair.
Support of waiving recording fees for special loans to flood victims from the town of Richmond. Opposing ride version of funding formula for schools by Exeter West Greenwich Regional School District. Received from Peter Monis regarding Eagleville Road erosion and Booger Marsh Recreation Area flooding. Referred to Town Administrator and DPW Director. Received from Attorney General regarding Open Government Summit, July 30th, 2010. Received from City of Newport regarding Economic Symposium by Rhode Island EDC. Received from Tiverton School Department Corrective Action Plan mandated by Rhode Island General Law. Town Treasurer Budget and Revenue Reports for distribution. St. Teresa Church requests public hearing for noise variance on June 28th for annual feast with live band performing on July 30th and August 1st, 2010. Copy of response to CRMC regarding opposition to oyster farm on Nanaquacket Pond prepared by Councilor Durfee. Town Council President approval of workshop special meeting agenda for June 21st and continue to July 12, 2010 special council meeting with license extension annual renewal of Country View Estates LLC continued from January 11, 2010. That's tonight's consent agenda.
Mr. President, I make a motion that we approve the consent agenda.
Second.
The motion made and seconded. Discussion.
On the question, there's a motion to accept the minutes, approve the request at CA5 and CA7. Is that what happens when this motion is passed?
CA5 and CA7 would then be right. There will be the scheduling of a public hearing for the noise
The
variance.
request would be approved.
Yes.
Thank you.
Any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor? Unanimous. Thank you. Moving on, public hearings. Deborah Tulin, noise variance at 69 Nanaquacket on July 31st for live music, 12 p.m. to 5 p.m. to benefit John W. Tulin Memorial Ride Walk. Anyone wishing to be heard on that matter? Is there anyone wishing to be heard on that matter? Seeing none, I will close the public hearing and open it up to the council.
Mr. President, I just have a question. Is this to be held at a private residence?
I believe 69 Nanaquacket Road is a private residence.
And do we know what the request is as far as the noise? Is it a band? Is it
It's live music.
live music?
There being no objections from the audience, I would make a motion that the petition be granted.
Second.
Motion made and seconded. Discussion. Seeing none, all those in favor? Motion's approved. Planning Board zoning ordinance text amendment regarding new article titled Wind Energy Conservation Facilities, letter and comments from residents. I believe somebody wished to make a presentation.
Live at 42 Rimrock Court.
My request is a little out of the ordinary.
Little unconventional. I just wanted to clear it with you, sir, that this will take about 15 minutes for me to run through, but basically I'm representing 12 to 15 families, and my supposition is that I'll be able to save you some time by condensing basically what we want. Thanks.
I was moving the jack. I've got an extension cord that can reach just about anywhere.
I have no idea where there's going to be one. You've got to... Steve, do you know where there's an active...
I have a splitter.
I think he has a cord. He's looking for an active outlet.
Over here, I got one.
Looks like I could have listened to those 15 people by the time we set this up.
I wanted to start earlier. I wanted to get all this ready.
Oh, God, just keep going.
Thank you. My name is Henry Worsness, and I live again at 42 Raymart Court. Good evening. On behalf of the abutters and the rest of the Tiverton community, who will be directly affected by the proposed placement of an industrial size wind turbine plant on residential land, I thank the board for this opportunity to be heard. Please take note. The Tiverton residents residing close to Block 92, Lot 17 are not against wind power as an alternative renewable energy source. We are, however, against locating a wind turbine plant in a residential area because doing so would be irresponsible. This is the Sessions map. I don't know if it's I or 112, Block 92. As I have said, I live at 42 Raymart Court. This is the property indicated by the arrow in the picture down the bottom lower right. The gentleman proposing this turbine is Mr. Christie. I had pointed out, he had pointed out in an article 11 February 2010 in the Seconic Times, and I call your attention to the uppermost third column. It's not there, so I blew it up. Basically, it says, Mr. Christie maintains that the turbine will be located 1,000 feet from the nearest residence. Back to the assessor's map, unless the proposed turbine location has changed appreciably, its proposed location is considerably closer than 1,000 feet that Mr. Christie had said it would be. In fact, its location to the nearest residence is more accurately on the order of only 400 feet. We believe that Mr. Christie is blatantly misrepresenting the truth in this instance. That is an error of magnitude of 250%. I will later demonstrate that errors of this magnitude are both critically important as well as unacceptable when making environmental and structural engineering decisions. Please note the arrow. This is 42 Ringlock Court, my home. I am here before you not only because I am the closest to the proposed site, but because I believe that this site is unsafe for many more than just me. I am a physician. I have devoted my life to the health, safety, and welfare of my fellow man. I believe that this turbine, if it were to be approved for this site, the health, safety, and welfare of exponentially more people than just my family would be at constant risk. What is being proposed here is an electrical power plant on a large industrial scale for commercial use. Let me repeat that. What is being proposed here is an electrical power plant on residential zone land in an established residential community. These are my arguments. Location of an industrial-sized turbine at the proposed site will negatively impact not only the immediate environment and those of us on which Mr. Christie is narrowly focusing as the abutters, but also has the potential to negatively impact much of the Tiverton community as well. Still farther reaching is the potential for negative impact on every motorist traveling Route 24. First, environmental impact. When possible, I tried to choose examples that were both recent and from local instances or were readily applicable to the climate, terrain, and similarity of Tiverton. A 343-foot tall wind power plant will require at least one 300-foot tall crane for erection. The turbine located at the Portsmouth High School required 2 such cranes. Such a monstrosity of a crane would be traveling through narrow roads, threatening damage to houses and town roads and the utility lines buried beneath them. These cranes will return every time the wind power plant needs servicing or repair. Again, I turn your attention to the Seconic Times 11 February 2010 edition third column. Mr. Christie maintains that a proposed location is densely wooded and only the area used for construction would be clear of trees. We believe that Mr. Christie may not realize the magnitude of what the actual construction zone will be. This is an aerial view of a turbine-based construction in Stevenson County, Illinois, taken in 2008. As you can clearly see, the construction zone is quite immense. As with every construction project, the initial speculation of magnitude oftentimes grows to accommodate unforeseen needs. Just as an aside, I have credits for everything I am presenting. I show this picture to demonstrate the previously mentioned ideal that initial speculations of magnitude often grow to accommodate unforeseen needs. This is the same Stevenson County, Illinois turbine construction site. The double set of tire tracks roughly estimates the original clearing. Recalling Mr. Christie's 250% error in measurement made with respect to proximity to the closest residence, being more than 1,000 feet from the turbine, I submit that Mr. Christie's claim to clear only the area used for construction is suspect as well. Additional environmental impact from collateral damage associated with wind power plant construction is demonstrated here. Incidentally, this is the type of collateral damage to the environment that on paper, in a proposal, is misleadingly insignificant. This is Kitty Mountain access road to a turbine in Eustis, Maine, just south of the Quebec border. These photos demonstrate the degree of terrain alteration needed to support the access roads through the project site. It is because of this alteration in the natural topography of the land that severe erosion becomes an ongoing problem for many construction projects. Heavy wheel ruts along the access road are the end result of this erosion. Please don't turn my front yard into Kirby Mountain. For those of you residents of local area, for those of you that are unfamiliar with Latin, this slide speaks for itself. That's Tiverton. Next, I would like to address health concerns related to the location of the wind turbine too close to residential communities. These are the facts. I apologize if the screen just doesn't do the slide justice. You have to be more than 1/4 of a mile. That's 1,320 feet away from the Portsmouth Abbey wind turbine before the sound it makes becomes inaudible. This wind turbine can produce 44 decibels at the edge of Quarries Lane. This second point is taken directly from the PortsmouthAbbey.org homepage. They don't deny it. In fact, they're proud of it. The proposed turbine will be a full 102 feet taller than the one at the Abbey. So how much louder will the proposed turbine be? The World Health Organization, designated on my slides as WHO, however, would not be so proud of that statistic at the Portsmouth Abbey. Here's why. WHO holds that at nighttime, in other words, late evening and sleeping hours, sound levels should be less than 30 decibels to protect children's health. Let's face it, we live in America, the nation toward which all other countries look to uphold the standards of health and well-being. If we cannot protect the health of our own children, then we have no business attempting economic gain. Now, 30 decibels is not that intrusive of a sound level. In fact, it's about 10 to 20 decibels lower than the sound levels needed to cause awakening. What makes this significant is the fact that a child's autonomic nervous system is 10 to 15 decibels more sensitive than an adult's. As an aside, the autonomic nervous system is that part of our brain and spinal cord that allows us to unconsciously adapt to our changing environment. It largely dictates our sense of balance. It defines our ability to combat the stress involved in reacting to both audible and inaudible acoustic input. It allows us to concentrate and learn new behaviors. For example, a baby learning to walk and talk. Furthermore, even for adults, the health effects are first noted in some studies when sound levels exceed 32 decibels. Nina Pierpoint, a physician from New York, has authored a book that outlines a syndrome called wind turbine syndrome. Originally, opponents to her work criticized her work, stating it was not peer-reviewed and therefore held no weight. That has since changed. As of January 2010, her work is now officially peer-reviewed and as such cannot be ignored. Dr. Pierpoint holds that it is this inaudible low-frequency noise as measured by the DBC weighting scale that, among other factors to be discussed shortly, have the most impact on the health of people living too close to wind turbines. The negative impact to health has been described as symptoms such as sleep disturbance, headaches, nausea, tachycardia, which is a fast heart rate, and panic episodes. To sum that up, her take-home message is that her final recommendation from her research holds that turbines should be no closer than 2 kilometers. Now, not a lot of people speak in the metric system. That's 6,551 feet from residential areas. Now remember, Mr. Christie is suggesting a safety setback of only 343 feet. A second health concern that directly affects well-being is that of shadow flicker. Shadow flicker is defined as the on and off flickering effect of a shadow caused when the sun passes behind the rotor of the wind turbine. What I have to present to you here is actual footage from the Olszewski home located on 36 Education Lane in Portsmouth, Rhode Island, about 750 feet from the base of that turbine. While this footage is playing, please do me a favor. Imagine you are looking for a new house and your real estate agent walks you through this house.
This is my bedroom. This is my kitchen. This is my living room. This is one of my bathrooms.
Now, answer honestly, you keep your answers to yourself. How many people would still be interested in buying this house?
This is the outside of my house, the front of the house. By the way, today is the 24th. And it is the 30th.
to Mr. Christie dated February 13, 2010, Northeast engineers and consultants attempted to give support to the idea that shadow flicker will not be a factor in the proposed turbine. This letter states that all of the neighboring properties are outside the zone of shadow flicker. Two glaring problems are contained within this report. Number one, the test model used for this report was a 213-foot Furlander turbine. I believe this turbine was used to deliberately underestimate the impact of the shadow flicker that the proposed turbine would have, since the one proposed is actually 343 feet, a full 130 feet taller. Remember what I said about errors of magnitude? This is either deliberate misrepresentation or really bad math skills. This is a picture taken from that same Northeast Engineers Consultants 03 February 2010 report stating that the flicker generated would not impact any residences. However, this report skillfully neglected to report any impact it would have on daily motorist travel on Route 24. I call your attention to the northernmost portion of the batwing type outline of the shadow flicker. The second glaring problem with this report is that the perimeter of significant flicker, as referenced by the batwing line, involved with the model turbine. Remember, the one tested is 130 feet smaller than the one proposed, encompasses a significant portion of Route 24. Of particular importance is the stretch of road approaching exit 5. I don't have my pointer, I think everybody can see where exit 5 is, upper left-hand corner. Another rhetorical question: do you really want to have to deal with shadow flicker while attempting to navigate towards an exit ramp at 50 plus miles per hour? These are some of the comments. The next two slides are quotes taken again from the Olszewski family, who have had almost 2 years of living under their turbine. Noise is worst at nighttime when other noises are absent. Recall that the World Health Organization said about nighttime noise that it should be less than 32 decibels. It is an uncyclable rhythmic hum that you find yourself anticipating about every third second. Portsmouth feasibility study focused exclusively on the happy aspects of the turbine and nothing negative. Closing your blinds has no effect on the shadow flicker. You would have to use quote-unquote blackout blinds. The shadow flicker was like going to a disco. When a ball bearing gets worn from use or rust, a flat spot develops and sounds like a repetitive hammer against steel. Again, comments from Tony Olszewski. Moving on. Lastly, I'd like to address what I feel is the main reason why an industrial-sized turbine generator has does not belong in any residential area, namely that the proposed safety setback is irresponsible. Again, I tried to choose examples that were both recent, either from local instances or were readily applicable to climate, terrain, and similarity to this application. This is a February 23, 2009 example of ice buildup on turbines on a 300-foot industrial scale turbine in Newburyport, Mass. You'll notice that the ice is located near the hub only. The reason for that is explained with simple physics. The effective speed of the turning blade increases as you travel closer to the tip. The tip speed of some turbines of this relatively small turbine can exceed 200 miles per hour. As such, the ice that once formed on the blades has already been thrown from the turbine. The following quote is taken directly from the Rhode Island Terrestrial Wind Turbine Sighting Report, January 13, 2009. With regard to the concern of ice buildup, the Finnish Meteorological Institute states that, quote, the risk of being struck by ice thrown from a turbine is diminishingly small at distances greater than approximately 250 meters or 820 feet from the turbine in a climate where moderate icing occurs. Nobody would dispute that we have icing in Tiverton. The proposed wind turbine has a setback of only 343 feet, a figure that only equals the rotor height of this proposed turbine. This Finnish Meteorological Society suggests 820 feet. The Rhode Island DEM and the Rhode Island Terrestrial Wind Turbine Sighting Report agrees and have placed this figure in their recommendations to communities in the state of Rhode Island. I draw your attention to the fourth line down from this table taken from page 4, section C of that report, which says 820 feet. The proposed setback, I hold is irresponsible. Next, I would like to present to you 3 types of failures of wind turbines. Blade failures, tower failures, and turbine fires would all pose great threat to both residents and Route 24 drivers. Failure rates recorded in the Rhode Island Terrestrial Wind Turbine Sighting Report at 1 failure in 1,000 turbine standard. Before I go further, I'd like to offer you an analogy that I hope will illustrate the point that This 1 in 1,000 statistic makes it imperative to have realistic safety setbacks. If you were to be offered a $10 lottery ticket with a 1 in 1,000 chance of winning $10,000, my suspicion is that many of you would think those odds of winning were very good. Every day, people throw money at the megabucks, thinking they're going to win several $1 million, when their actual odds of winning are truly on the order of less than 1 in 375,000. I'm asking the town of Tiverton to place conservative setback rules in place to avoid the potential tragedy from real and present danger involved with locating turbines in residential areas and close to highways. March 6, 2009, Altoona, New York wind energy facility, which went online in early 2009, lost a turbine due to collapse. The project consisted of 65 GE 1.5 megawatt turbines. No explanation for the collapse has been released. Turbine caused a fire when they sailed at the ground. This is an aerial image of a 329-foot turbine, base to blade tip, that collapsed on the morning of December 27, 2009, at the Fenner wind facility in Fenner, New York. This is an August 20, 2009 example of blade failure on a General Electric 1.5 megawatt wind turbine, the Wessington Springs Wind Farm, which was shredded in high winds. Babcock and Brown, the installers, this became operational in 2008. 2008 as well, a turbine in Searsburg, Vermont, close to the home wind facility, collapsed in high wind conditions. One of the turbine blades hit the base, causing the tower to buckle and the nacelle and rotor assembly to crash to the ground. 2009, a wind turbine burned near Ulsen, a town in Lower Saxony, Germany. According to police reports, the fire that incurred damages of 750,000 euros, which is about $1 million US, is assumed to have been caused by a technical fault at the top of the turbine. I have this slide to demonstrate that despite having even the best firefighting equipment and personnel in Tiverton, nothing, I repeat, nothing can be done when a wind turbine burns. It is too inaccessible and too dangerous. This September 26, 2008 example of a Vestas turbine burning demonstrates how firefighters are following standard protocol for burning turbines. This standard protocol involves standing by and permitting the turbine to burn out while arresting potential spread from the fragments that fall to the ground. My final example of turbine failure, this is the important one, is referenced in the Rhode Island Terrestrial Wind Turbine Sighting Report, which quotes the farthest documented distance an entire blade traveled after failure. The entire blade traveled almost 500 feet. The maximum distance reported for a blade fragment was 1,640 feet. The date of the citation is from 2004. I attempted to find further documentation of this particular failure, and I eventually found an even more recent one, thereby demonstrating that the incident from 2004 was not an isolated event. The more recent one is from this past summer. In July 2009, a fair storm destroyed portions of an industrial wind turbine located in Briest and Schwarzwald, I don't know if I'm saying that right, in Germany. Pieces flew 150 meters, that's 492 feet, through the air, landing about 50 meters from a federal highway. The approximately 40-meter blade broke several trees as it cut a track through the forest. In February 2008, in the city of Paris, Denmark, the 10-year-old Nordtank Vestas windmill began spinning out of control during high winds. Ordinarily, the pitch of the blades are automatically changed to slow the turbine down. Additionally, there is a speed governor that automatically applies brakes to slow down the spinning of the rotor blades when its speed exceeds its capabilities. However, when these mechanisms fail, the results are catastrophic. Local townspeople heard the turbine spinning erratically and obtained this footage of explosion-like collapse, showing one of the wing blades breaking off, casting debris into the three other wings, and shearing the 16-meter, 200-foot tower nearly in half. The person filming this failure was a quarter-mile away and had debris thrown well beyond his position. Note the presence of a van at the base. And this is smaller than the one proposed. That's what happens when brakes fail. Same turbine from a different angle. This is a different view of the same turbine. The reason why I'm showing this to you is to demonstrate that these towers, when they fail, they cannot neatly fall to one side. This is 2009. New technology. Aside from being published by the Copenhagen Post, February 2008, I apologize, 2008, I included, for those who got the actual footage is real, here's the Danish news broadcast of the same incident. I won't belabor the issue, it exists. Back to the proposed turbine, the setbacks presently being recommended by the new Tiverton ordinance. If the Breeze Germany failure occurred at the proposed 1-12 Block 92 location, and even if you use the setback requirements from the Rhode Island Terrestrial Wind Turbine Siting Report, which would equal about 475 feet, or 1.5 times the rotor height for this proposed wind power plant, the turbine blade would still have ended up in the middle of Route 24. The take-home message: the setbacks being proposed, if accepted, transfer risk to the public, and this too would be blatantly irresponsible. This is table 3 on page 6 of the Rhode Island Terrestrial Wind Turbine Siting Report. Based on potential for icing alone, there should be at least 820 feet the setback distance. There's a move right now to standardize all Europe and the UK to a 1,330 meter, that's in excess of 4,000 feet setback distance. Again, those pictures that I showed you, there were no residences anywhere near them. They're out in fields in Denmark. They're out in fields in Germany and Norway. Additionally, the United States National Wind Coordinating Committee recommends that wind turbines be installed no closer than a half mile from any dwelling. Again, that's the United States National Wind Coordinating Committee. The German marketer, Vertexo, specifies that turbines not be placed within 2 kilometers, that's 1.25 miles, from any dwelling. Now, in the absence of the potential for icing, our group maintains that even the 1.5 times the hub height plus the rotor radius is much too small. Mr. Christie is suggesting a safety setback of a mere 343 feet. Dr. Pierpoint, on the other end of the spectrum, suggests 6,561 feet. These are the two ends of the spectrum when it comes to ideas on safety setbacks. 6,500 feet versus the mere height of the turbine alone. We feel that based on the potential for turbine failures previously mentioned, along with also previously mentioned well-documented health risks, the setback of 1.5 times the blade tip height as currently proposed by the Planning Board Subcommittee on Wind Turbine Usage is much too small. Additionally, we feel that the setbacks closer to the factors used in the state of Pennsylvania, recommended by the University of Massachusetts, and those recommendations set forth by Dr. Pierpoint, backed by the World Health Organization, are more in congruence with the safety factors that we would like the town of Tiverton to use in their efforts to protect its citizens. One last piece of evidence supporting realistic setbacks. I found the owner's manual, yes they have it for wind turbines too, to a wind turbine similar in magnitude to the one Mr. Christie is proposing. Incidentally, the public online access to this manual was subsequently removed, presumably because of the potential for a negative economic impact to the wind industry's position. On page 3 of this manual, it states, and I quote, "Do not stay within a radius of 400 meters, that's 1,300 feet, from the turbine unless it is necessary." This is a turbine that's in excess of 200 feet, smaller than 3. With this manual, the wind industry has tipped their cards to us. Even they, albeit briefly, give realistic guidelines for safety setbacks. In conclusion, the people of the Tiverton community respectfully request the development of responsible setback guidelines in consideration of present U.S. trends, European averages, and professional manufacturing recommendations to prohibit the placement of industrial power generating turbines in residential areas. Thank you for your time. One last comment. I did note that in the most recent ordinance, there was a line added, and I want to thank whoever put it in, and I thank the entire board developing that ordinance. It was no small feat. That basically put the ball back in the court of the manufacturer of the turbine to get their recommendations for what they think a safety setback should be. Now, if you use the safety setback from the turbine manual that I used, we're good. Everybody's safe in Tiverton. If you're now relying on the manufacturer who has economic interests in it to determine the safety setback, you may be setting yourself up for failure. They may curtail their safety setbacks in order to sell more turbines. I think that if you were to have a safety setback, not 1.5 times the hub height plus the rotary radius, you're talking, small models there. You need something more along the lines of 2.5 times the hub height, keeping that away from residential areas. And I think that I've made a case for doing just that. And I thank you for your time.
Thank you. Anyone else wishing to be heard on the matter of the zoning ordinance text amendments regarding wind energy conservation facilities?
Good evening, President Bolin, members of the council. I'm here not to ask you to stop listening to the public comment at this point, but I would certainly encourage you to continue on that. But I would request that at the end of the time tonight that you continue the matter. And the reason for that is that I'm currently working with the State of Rhode Island Economic Development Commission and the Newport County Chamber of Commerce. They're assisting the town in developing a development plan for the industrial park. And we're going to be looking at a number of different uses, and we need to study a little bit more the implications of this ordinance and see what that will do for the industrial park. So we just need a little bit more time, and we'll be coming back with some recommendations. So I would suggest probably not the next meeting, but the meeting after, if that's possible, to continue to then.
Thank you.
Gary Plunkett, 266 Newport Road. I'm also the town's representative to the East Bay Energy Consortium, which is cooperating with the study that's being conducted that the planner just mentioned in terms of looking at the possibility of wind energy for the whole East Bay area. That study and the study for the industrial park is very important that they be compatible, and so I think it would be very beneficial to continue this so that we can get those two together and make sure that the ordinance addresses the industrial park opportunities out there. With regard to the ordinance, I'd just like to share a couple of comments about the previous presentation, which was very professionally done and very well documented. I was part of the committee that drafted this ordinance, and I would like to suggest that, or offer the opinion that it's unfortunate that the proposed wind turbine that was mentioned and described caused this real great concern before the ordinance could really be studied and drafted. The comments, a lot of the comments, concerns that has been expressed, I would share in terms of that specific project. I would like to add, however, that that specific project is not being heard tonight. I mean, it's certainly relevant to the issue because it would be judged under the ordinance. But I'd like to remind the council that the ordinance will recommend a special use permit. And a special use permit would address all of those concerns. Obviously, the setback standards and so on would be the standard by which the special use permit decision was made. But I would remind the council that in order to approve a special use permit, the following findings have to be made. The public convenience and welfare will be served, will not be detrimental to the public health, safety, morals, and welfare. It will be compatible with neighboring uses. It will not adversely affect the general character of the area. It will not create a nuisance in the neighborhood or hinder or endanger vehicular or pedestrian movement. It will be compatible with the comprehensive community plan of the town of Tiverton. So there's all of that is in the special use permit and would be reviewed, and those findings would have to be positive before any particular project could be made. It's not to say that this discussion was irrelevant, but I would just like to suggest that all of that, regardless of what the ordinance ultimately says, would be the final judgment standards. So I have lots of comments to make with regard to the ordinance, but if we're going to, if the decision is made to continue that, I would suggest that because of the load of the rest of the agenda, that I could forego those to the continued meeting.
Anyone else wishing to be heard on this ordinance?
Hi, I'm Chi Loriano from Tiverton, and I was part of a group that attended many of the meetings that were held in producing this wind ordinance, and I'd like to tell you that we presented a lot of the information that you saw tonight to this committee, and many times we were ignored, many times we couldn't speak, many times we were put down, and the wind ordinance as presented to you tonight is a result of that, where the noise ordinance that we asked for a special wind turbine noise ordinance to be put in with a lower decibel than the town ordinance. The town ordinance calls for a daytime decibel of 65, nighttime decibel of 55. And it was presented to you tonight that you cannot sleep unless you have 30. We were ignored. The wordage in the wind turbine ordinance is very confusing. It doesn't explain it to the average person reading it. The wind turbine ordinance is missing a lot of aspects that we presented that are used in other wind turbine ordinances throughout the country, and it's lacking. There's a lot of work that needs to go in this turbine ordinance. The town of Charleston, in their turbine ordinance, calls for a 35 decibel noise at night. Their wind ordinance is over 11 pages long, ours is 6. Again, this is going to be another ordinance where if an abutter or an affected party doesn't like it, then they have to lawyer up and go get a lawyer to protect themselves, and I don't think that's right. I think the town needs to produce an ordinance that is respectful of the residents and not just the wind turbine company. Thank you.
Anyone else wishing to be heard?
Peter Monis, 83 Captain Circle. I'm speaking for myself basically, but I was on the subcommittee for the wind turbine facilities. Again, I agree with Gary. This ordinance before you is about the general ordinance for the town, not a particular citing of one particular location. And there's an opportunity for the neighbors or anybody else in town, whether they're going to be affected by a wind turbine, to speak before several boards. And Gary mentioned a special use permit, that's true, but also there is an impact statement that's going to be required. So there are, in the ordinance itself, many precautions that we looked into to protect the citizens and the benefit of the town. As to, I'm not going to argue in detail about all the comments that were made, but anything in this world, in our world, has conflicts and dangers and risks. Sound is a problem, and most of the time it's annoying. Very few times that we really enjoy, you know, a conflict of peace and quiet with man-made equipment. They all make noise. But does it really annoy you? Does it really affect you? Now, it was mentioned here of 30 dBA of noise, and this was given to us by the neighbors in that committee there, the representative. That represents very quiet. It's a library soft whisper. That's really a low number to consider to be drafted into an ordinance. What we looked into, we agreed to use the ordinance already developed by the town for noise limits. And I think that will, you know, be suffice. And if there's a problem, you know, we can always change it, come back. But that's safeguarding the noise problem. And flicker and noise does not occur all the time on a wind turbine. Depends on the wind. The wind is not blowing all the time, so there's not going to be any noise. And the same thing with flicker. And flicker occurs only in certain directions when the sun is at a certain level and a certain degree on the horizon, say from the west and to the south and in the east. And people in the southerly direction of a wind turbine shouldn't have any problems with flicker. And just to go back down to noise again too, I think we all experience annoying noise, but we accept it. Every day somebody in our neighborhood is cutting grass, and that loud noise cutting grass is louder than the noise produced by a wind turbine, so it's all got to be relative and considered. So, and one more point, there's mention about continuing this ordinance for a later date, but I think what we've done is to direct it for the general aspect for the town. Now, the East Bay Collaborative and Industrial Park is another aspect, and I think we can amend the ordinance later on down the road if we have to make corrections for that particular development. So please consider the ordinance as is for the town and the residents. Thank you.
Andrew Kozanowski, 42 Rimrock Court. I'll make this brief. Thank you for hearing me again. I grew up in Rhode Island. I went away to do service for my country in the Air Force. I've got 2 tours in Iraq. I've had bombs exploding next to me. I came back to Rhode Island. I could have stayed in the Midwest where it was nice and quiet. I came back to Rhode Island. I chose Tiverton because it's quiet. I don't want that jeopardized. It may, years from now, people who move there, who have the turbine in their backyard, be well aware of the risks and the sound and things like that. I came to Tiverton where it's quiet. I can still hear 24 on certain days. It doesn't bother me because it's intermittent. The sound of a turbine is constant. It's something that you don't really notice until you've been under it for 6 months. Mr. Olszewski will tell you that. Please don't get hung up on the idea that I'm targeting this one wind turbine. That's the one that got my attention. Again, I'm a physician. I care about everybody in here. If any one of you were my patient, I would want to know how you are developing. If you're a kid and your nervous system is developing and you're being subjected to something constant that's interfering with your autonomic development, I'd be interested. It's not because of the one that's in my backyard that I'm here. It's because I want to protect everybody here from that happening. Who misses the thing in the paper that says, hey, come down to the town hall, we're going to talk about something that might go up in your backyard. They missed that. Mr. Olszewski missed all that. Not everybody looks at the papers to find out what's going to go up 750 feet from their house. If they miss that, they get a monstrosity in their backyard. Please protect us from that. Put industrial turbines in industrial areas. Thank you again.
I'm Mr. Olszewski, and I was invited here to talk. The gentleman just said, mowing the lawn is noisy. I mean, let's face it, yeah, everybody knows what a lawnmower sounds like, but it's only for 20, 30 minutes. This thing is yearning and yearning and yearning 24/7. Yes, unless the wind stops. But we all know we live on an island or close to the ocean, and the wind is always blowing. The sun rises and sets, it rises in the east, sets in the west. So everybody in the east and the west is going to get a flicker or a shadow effect. There's no way around it. It's going to happen. Unless you have this steel shutters on the front of your house and you live in a cave. I didn't buy my house to live in a cave. This just happened. They pushed it through, and it happened. I don't want it to happen to people here. That's why I'm here to say, you guys really need to listen to him because he did his homework, and he's right.
Anyone else wishing to be heard? I'm going to open it to the council. I'm going to leave the public hearing open at this time because there may be some discussion that may lead people to want to make some more comments. Any member of the council?
I must say I was particularly interested in the presentation that was made. We have time to get this right, and getting it right, I do think, means that we have to take a look at the noise aspect and the setbacks. And I hope, if we continue this, as I hope we do, that those particular issues, which will carry an impact, really need to be addressed. I don't feel comfortable with the noise standard that is in this. And just speaking for myself, I do hope that we develop some standards that will be used even if these are permitted by special use. So I really direct those comments to the committee that is working on this.
I would like to join with Ms. Durfee on that and see if we could get this matter returned to the planning board. And I say that because although the presentation was excellent, the fact remains that the people who listened to all of the witnesses, who reviewed all of the reports, unanimously disagreed with the people who spoke here today. And to give you an example of the type of problem I would have on the town council right now, in a letter from the planning board chairman, he concludes, and he's just referring to noise at this point, but you'll understand the problem we have. The town council may wish to explore the potential need for greater restrictions with regards to constant noise that may be generated by a wind energy conversion facility. So there seems to be a concession, there's noise. And then it proceeds, many different examples of wind energy conversion facility noise standards from around the country were reviewed, and there seems to be no clear consensus on the issue. It certainly wouldn't be fair for us at this point to simply second guess a planning board that has obviously put hours and days into reviewing all of this matter. But I think the arguments were persuasive enough that I'm not satisfied with the conclusion that there's no clear consensus on the issue. I'd like to get some sort of reassurance from our planning board that we in fact have the appropriate setback and that we have a setback that'll take into consideration annoying noise that apparently seems to be conceded even in the planning board report. So I would like to make a motion, if this is possible, Mr. President, because I'm not in a position to make an educated judgment on this at this point. I'd like to send it back to the planning board to specifically address this setback issue and the noise issue, and perhaps see what they can do with the neighbors as far as reaching some compromise. Because Dr. Korzaneski's conclusion was, if my notes are correct, that what we're dealing with at this point, if we're just talking about this one facility, and I know we're not, but he says, well, the proper setback is somewhere between between 343 and 6,500 feet. That doesn't help me very much. So I would make a motion, Mr. President, if that's appropriate, to send it back to the planning board and to address the issues that Ms. Durfee and I have raised.
It's definitely appropriate.
Second the motion.
Okay, we have a motion and a second to refer the matter back to the planning board for their consideration of some of those items that were brought up this evening. Is there any further discussion?
Mr. President, I would only ask that we have a date certain to bring it back before the council.
I think we're going to have a problem with that because that's dictating to the planning board when they may have the opportunity to review this. I think in this particular case, we're going to have to close the public hearing and we're going to have to re-advertise with if there's substantial change to the ordinance. So I think that would probably be the best way to do it rather than try to make this thing to a date certain and continue this public hearing, because it definitely will be with some different language. So at this...
Mr. President,
okay.
would it be appropriate to extend the moratorium, if it still exists, on the construction of these towers until an accepted ordinance is adopted?
That we can also do that, Mr. Hughes.
That's exactly the point that we did have a moratorium, and we did act in a not a rapid way, but we did have to meet the moratorium to put this ordinance into effect. So if the moratorium could be extended for another 3 or 4 months, I'm sure the subcommittee will be willing to do the due diligence and try and get back to you in a timely manner.
Mr. Lambert, would you like to add to your motion that referring this back to the planning board and extend the moratorium on?
So amended, Mr. President.
Okay. So the...
But I think the moratorium probably should have a fixed date to it.
No, that one, we'll do that, extend it for, in the motion, 3 or 4 months, allowing the planning board.
Well, it was my suggestion that the moratorium continue until an ordinance is adopted addressing the issue. That's a date certain, I would say.
I agree, Mr. Costa.
Excuse me.
If you would, okay, if you would rather, okay, then
Excuse
the
me, Mr.
motion,
President?
then the motion.
I think that there should be a separate motion addressing the moratorium. Going forward, we've seen before where we need to refer to the prior moratorium.
Okay.
And I think that would be the way to handle it.
And, okay, will we be able to do that this evening, not being a part of our agenda? Or can we do that as part of this agenda item because we have not adopted the wind energy facility? That's why, the only reason I tried to incorporate it into the motion, if we need to take it up again at our next meeting and reaffirm the change in the moratorium, I don't have a problem doing so, but I wouldn't want to see us leave a window of opportunity for somebody to try to submit a plan because there's no moratorium in effect.
I think the motion is legitimate. I think she's looking to the difficulty in administering the moratorium, since one already exists.
Okay.
And this one...
Okay.
You know, we can do this in 2 steps and just say in conjunction with the Mr. Lambert's motion, and do it as a second, but do it as part of it in conjunction.
Okay.
I agree.
Okay, then there's a motion and a second on the floor to refer this back to the planning board for reconsideration using the testimony that was presented to us here this evening. That motion's been made and seconded. Is there any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor? Now, in light of us sending this back to the planning board, I believe it would be in order to extend the moratorium on the wind energy conservation facilities.
I would ask that the attorney provide the wording, unless you want me to say that. I would say in conjunction with the passage of the motion to transfer, or to refer this matter back to the committee, that the moratorium be continued until
an ordinance is passed, until an ordinance is adopted. So there's a motion to continue the moratorium until such time as an ordinance is adopted.
I will second that.
Been seconded. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor? That's unanimous. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Moving on, the Tiverton Yacht Club requests zoning ordinance text and map amendment. At this time, I will recuse myself because I could not get an advisory opinion from the Ethics Commission on whether or not I should vote on this matter.
Aim and make your chin.
Slide this. Right there. But at least we can slide it back.
That's good. It's not a date certain. That you really Yeah. No, I think it's over there. So good.
You have to take
It's good for your brain too. Oh, we need that. So we get people.
Madam Vice President, you going to call the meeting back to order?
Sophie, Mr. Oh, the lady. What's Jeannie?
Scott. Should I forget that my son's name is Scott?
Okay. This is my stuff. This, I think, is mine. This is yours.
As you try to get sound, spells or whatever.
This whole kit. Yeah.
Open it up to the Tiverton Yacht Club. That's zoning ordinance text. We're gonna start the public hearing. But it's not any member of the public at this point, is it?
Wait, there's a zoning ordinance there. What zoning ordinance? It's their petition. The zoning, the Tiverton, they open up the public hearing with, isn't it? Well, first we have the presentation. We're going to open up this public hearing of the Tiverton Yacht Club. Thank you. I'm going to ask for some indulgence on behalf of the people here in the auditorium as it relates to any public information and anyone who would wish to speak, that you would please keep your comments brief, please, because we'd like to hear as many people as we possibly can within the time that we have here tonight. The stenographer, who is here as well, has asked that anybody who does come up forward to speak, that there is a pad and pen here on the desk, and that you would print your name, please, and your address, so that she doesn't have to stop and ask everyone how to pronounce or spell their names. So it'll help facilitate things. And lastly, I would ask that we all remain cool, calm, collected, because it's very warm in here as it is, and that to be is a reminder that we're all neighbors, we're all friends, and we're here to listen and learn. Mr. Tremblay?
I have a preliminary matter that relates to jurisdictional issues that I think should be heard before the substance of the proposal for zone change.
And you are, sir?
David Campbell. I live at 76 Riverside Drive.
Okay. I'm going to allow you to speak, but very briefly, please.
Sure. This is an extraordinary application. This town has never seen an application like this one. And by that, I mean this is a private application filed to change the zone of a neighborhood where the property owners oppose and contest and have filed a protest petition against the zone change, the map change, and the zoning amendments. Typically, the normal course of these things is that a private property owner in control and in ownership of the property would seek a zone change, not an applicant owning property seeking to impose their will upon the neighbors against the neighbor's will. So standing is going to be a very significant issue here before this council and potentially before any court reviewing. And I've got a question that I don't think really can be answered. Who is the applicant? If you look, I'm not sure what the council has in front of them, but if you look at the application, it is signed by Attorney Tremblay on behalf of Tiverton Yacht Club. Legally, there is no such entity as Tiverton Yacht Club. The trustees of the Tiverton Yacht Club own the property on which the Tiverton Yacht Club, Inc. leases and operates the club. Tiverton Yacht Club, Inc. is a Rhode Island nonprofit. So there is a lessee entity, Tiverton Yacht Club, Inc., and an owner entity, trustees of Tiverton Yacht Club. The application you have, actually you don't have an application. You have a request to be placed on the town council agenda. There is no application. This entity filed in 2007, and they had 3 or 4 applications rejected because they did not meet the requirements of the planning board chaired by Noel Berg at that time. Now the planning board is chaired by Mr. Hughes, who is an officer of the Tiverton Yacht Club. I don't think that kind of a defect would have been.
Excuse me, I hate to interrupt, but I think there was a preliminary motion that was going to be made, not a lecture.
Mr. Campbell, what is the preliminary issue?
This is a defective application. It's a defective application filed by a legal non-entity. Tiverton Yacht Club does not exist, and the owners are the trustees. The owners are the trustees. You cannot.
Please, refrain from any outbursts.
You cannot get a dimensional variance in the town of Tiverton without the owner's signature. They're seeking to change the character of a neighborhood that they do not control or own, at least legally. And we don't have an entity here that is in existence. If this goes to court, who is it that I claim against? Who is it that has made the application? The trustees need to act in their capacity as trustees, as the owners, or if the Tiverton Yacht Club, Inc. is the applicant, it's a lessee, and I'd suggest they definitely do not have standing as a lessee. They're not even a taxpayer.
I'd like to have Mr. Tremblay's opinion on that.
Certainly. The Tiverton Yacht Club operates on land of the trustees. The trustees are on board with this thing. If you go to court and he sues anybody, he's going to be suing the town of Tiverton, because the Tiverton Yacht Club is not making a zoning change, it's requesting a zoning change. As far as, he mentioned to me, the notice to neighbors, we took the most updated list the town had, it's 2008 list. Greg Jones will testify. He then took that list from the assessor's office and went to the land evidence records to update it even further. There really is no preliminary issue.
Yeah, I hadn't made the motion concerning notice, but that is a significant issue as well, and I would get to that, but I really do think that the trustees, the owners, if they are the applicant, I still would say, who is the applicant? You need to have a legal applicant, and it needs to be a legal entity. And we need to identify who that legal entity is.
Okay.
And the trustees
I'm going to
have
ask the town solicitor for her opinion, please.
Article 14 of the Tiverton Code of Ordinances states that any person, group of persons, or corporation may make application to the town council for an amendment. This is not a standing issue. Seeking an amendment of the zoning code is not the assertion of a legal right. It's not a standing issue. Therefore, this public hearing should go forward.
All right. I am going to ask that please hold all applause. We need to really get through this hearing and listen and hear everyone, please. So I'm going to ask that when anyone speaks, that you will hold your applause.
Would it be possible, counsel, to have the identity, the legal identity of the applicant? Because you can have anyone apply, counsel, but that person or persons have got to be identified.
Mr.
And
Campbell.
when you have legal entities that do exist, you can't just make up a non-entity to be the applicant.
Mr. Campbell, I'm sure that Mr. Tremblay is going to address that in his presentation.
Okay. Second issue.
No, wait a minute. I think I've heard enough. I need to hear from Mr. Tremblay. Thank you.
You
Yes.
hear from Mr. Tremblay on the substance or on, I had a motion regarding notice.
You had one motion, now we come to the second.
Second one, right. I'd like to hear Mr. Tremblay's response to your first.
My response is simple. It's the Tiverton Yacht Club. I'm their attorney. I made the application. There is no specific application form that's utilized by the Tiverton Town Clerk. You have a separate form that says you bring it before the council and you request the zoning change. That's precisely what they did. I don't know how you can mistake that it's the Tiverton Yacht Club as the applicant, because that's the only person that's then asserted this.
For 5 years, Mr. Tremblay has been filing pleadings in court on behalf of the trustees and Tiverton Yacht Club, Inc. For 5 years, he has been filing applications for zoning relief on behalf of the trustees, who are the owners. This is not an oversight. This is not a mistake. There's no accountability. There's no responsibility. There's not even a signature from a representative of this legal entity. At a minimum, there should be a signature from someone other than counsel. Again, the application form that the town maintains for every kind of relief has the owner's signature on it. This is a legal non-entity being permitted to go forward when you have two entities that are legal, that are in existence. One of them should be identified. Either the owner should be identified as the applicant or the lessee should be identified as the applicant, not something that doesn't exist.
If I may, that would be nice if there was an application, but there is no application. It's a petition to the council.
Okay. Now, we're all here for public hearing, and I'm going to open the public hearing. So anyone wish to speak?
There was another issue. There was a second motion that I did mention should be put on the record having to do with notice. Council alluded to it. I hadn't raised it. I'd like to have 2 minutes to raise it for the record.
2 minutes.
And for council. The abutters list is defective. State law requires that the tax assessor's office maintain their records annually. State law also requires notice to abutters. It's a constitutional due process issue. Notice to abutters based upon the current tax assessment records. The current tax assessment records, unfortunately, go back in Tiverton to 2008. So anyone that took title in 2009 and now in 2010 is not on that 2008 abutter list. And there are numerous omissions, and part of that is the responsibility of the town. I have checked with East Greenwich, I have checked with Barrington, I have checked with Situate, I have checked with Warwick, and 3 other communities. All 7 or 8 communities I've checked with are current within 4 to 6 weeks in 2010. The list maintained by Tiverton goes back to 2008. There are 18 months of conveyances and transactions which are not of record and therefore are not part of the abutters list. And state law requires that annual update, and I've got the citation.
If he wasn't an attorney,
Rhode Island General Law is 44-5-1, Section 1, Section 13, and Section 20. The tax assessor's current records have to be annually updated, and they must be current now as of 12/31/09. We have an abutters list that is 12/31/08. So there are many omissions that I am aware of.
If I may? That's not accurate. Greg Jones, who testified in the presentation of our case, prepared this list. He took the tax assessor's records, the most current records, and then he and another member of the yacht club particularly went to the land evidence records to update it from transfer of deeds that were not recorded in the tax assessor's office.
There's a $10 million marina in the neighborhood. They did not get notice on a parcel for which they took title in August of 2009.
did they get notice at all? You got a notice on all of them. Got notices on a parcel or all their parcels?
A parcel.
So they did get notice.
I think there was an 08 transaction.
Well,
Can we proceed with the public hearing on the other?
Thank you.
what we're told here is if there are any abutters that are prejudiced, they can bring forward their comments at any future date. I ask that you please refrain from your applause, please. And now we will proceed with the public hearing.
Madam Chairman, members of the council, thank you. We're here today because we had a fire in 2003 that destroyed our building. But now it's 2010, and what's extinguishing the Tiverton Yacht Club is the zoning ordinance of the town of Tiverton. Let me explain what I mean by that. We have 2 parcels of land. One parcel is on the water side of Riverside Street. The other parcel is on the upland east side of Riverside Street. When the town rezoned the property, they took our property and made the waterfront district. And in that district, the marina and the yacht club were permitted as a matter of right. However, you took our yacht club on the uphill side of the property and you made it R40, but you said that yacht clubs should be permitted by a special use permit. The problem with that is when the ordinance was passed, we existed, so we are not there by special use permit. We're there as a non-conforming use. Your zoning ordinance says this about a non-conforming use. A legal non-conforming use of any parcel of land shall not be extended beyond that portion of the lot thus used or otherwise expanded unless a use variance is granted pursuant to provisions and standards set forth in Article 17. Before I get into what a use variance is, let me tell you what the court said. You're the legislative body. You make the zoning laws. The court can only interpret the laws that are made by the city and town councils as it relates to zoning. When you made us a non-conforming use, the court said, the court has subscribed to the view that a lawful non-conforming use is a thorn in the side of proper zoning. It should not be perpetuated any longer than necessary. The policy of zoning is to abolish non-conforming uses as speedily as justice will permit. So when you made us a non-conforming use, you told the court you wanted us to cease existing. In a micro sense, we're here because of ourselves. In a macro sense, we're here because of the town. We don't think the town wants the Tiverton Yacht Club to exist. We don't think the town wants yacht clubs to exist. I ride up and down East Main Road every day looking at a waterfront district. Most of our waterfront district has no land. You can go from Nanaquarter to Stonebridge, and there is no land. You can go from Standish almost down to our property, there is no land. You can go past the Secundus Bridge, the old railroad bridge, there is no land. So most of the waterfront in this town doesn't have land and can't support a yacht club. So what do they mean when the court said you can't stand a non-conforming use? This is what happened. Our septic system got run over by a truck when we were taking the debris out from the 2003 fire. We had to get a new septic system. We applied to DEM for a smaller system. Some of our neighbors wrote to DEM and said, you need a much larger system. So we acquiesced. We said, that's what the neighbors want, okay. So we put in a bigger system. We go to court. The court says, no. In a large system, septic system is expansion of non-conforming use. Why is that critical? For two reasons. We have a change requested here for setbacks from water bodies in Secundus River. Under your ordinance, if you're within 200 feet of Secundus River, not only does your septic system have to be approved by the Department of Environmental Management, it has to be approved by the zoning board. We did both. We were back in court. The court says, no, it's not that special use permit I'm concerned about. It's the fact that you're a non-conforming use. You're supposed to stop existing. So if you want a septic system, then you have to get a use variance. You know what a use variance means in zoning? The use variance means you have to prove denial of all beneficial use of your property, similar to a confiscation by the government. Quote from Chase's Rhode zoning handbook manual says, another way of expressing the standards is to say that if the use variance is not granted, the result will be an indirect confiscation of the property. So here's why we're worried about being eliminated. We can't go to the zoning board of review and get a use variance because we cannot prove denial of all beneficial use. Because quite frankly, if we cease to exist, somebody could put a house on that lot, somebody could probably put a veterinarian's office on that lot. If you haven't provided us all beneficial use, you could probably put us on our existence. What else happens with a non-conforming use? The judge says, you have to focus back to 64, when the first zoning ordinance was there. The judge says, well, you park cars on the property in 64, so you can't park any cars on the property now. We have a handicap member. We can't have a handicap parking space for that person as long as we remain in non-conforming use. We put a swimming pool in 1972. No one complained about it. I think we're 38 years down the road. One of the reasons the swimming pool was put in was because of pollution in the Secana River. We taught swimming classes to almost all the children in the town of Tiverton for 38 years. The court said, whoa, you didn't have a swimming pool in 64, so you may use it for your members, but you can't teach non-members' children by using that swimming pool. So we deprived the town of Tiverton of a substantial resource where we used to teach kids how to swim, whether they were members or non-members, by saying you only be a member. And I won't tie your time up because I have quite a few witnesses to present. But the real kicker is this. You said our marina was a conforming use. The court said, not so fast. That marina did not exist in 64. In 64, we had a T-dock out there, and we had candy boats, and we had marina activity. But your zoning ordinance doesn't have a definition of marina. So I guess it's fair for a court to assume that what you had in 64, if it's different than you have now, is a change. The court said you can't have the tandem operation of a yacht club and a marina. I am probably the only lawyer in the state of Rhode Island that had a conforming use declared non-conforming. But what the judge said was because you made the yacht club building non-conforming, our marina is non-conforming. Our marina is shut down. It's operating now as a result of a temporary stay by the Supreme Court. These are huge ramifications for somebody who just wants to exist. But it's not only about us. I think maybe the good rhetorical question says, if somebody walks into this town now and says, what's a good place for a yacht club? I've been here a lot of years. I think the only good place for a yacht club is on Riverside Drive. The water quality is correct there. The only other place to possibly be correct would be Stonebridge and Riverside Drive on the upland side. But the yacht clubs have children, and that's the busiest street, and the busiest portion of that street is in that particular area. You don't want children crossing the road. So I looked at your comprehensive plan. I had witnesses on your comprehensive plan. Your comprehensive plan says historically, and this particular area especially has to have water-related uses, and that's what we're requesting. So we're asking not to just bring it to us, but to do what's best for the town of Tiverton. Thank you. I'd like to call Wayne Brzezinski to comment on the applicants.
Good evening. My name is Wayne Karzensky. I'm Commodore of the Tiverton Yacht Club, and I'm a resident of Tiverton. I'm here before you tonight to ask for your help to save the Tiverton institution, the TYC. We need you to provide zoning relief so we can rebuild the structure and the organization that was destroyed by fire in 2003. Tonight we ask you to approve the proposed zoning amendment to create a waterfront-related zone on the east side of Riverside Drive. This amendment will make the TYC clubhouse property a permitted use, allow us to rebuild, and make more of the area conforming by dimension. I'd like to give a brief history of the TYC. The TYC was formed in 1945 by a group of Tiverton neighbors and residents at the end of World War II. In 1956, the Tiverton Yacht Club moved to its present location at 58 Riverside Drive. This is across the street from what was the Fall River Yacht Club that was destroyed by the hurricane of 1938. There's quite a history on Riverside Drive of yacht clubs. In 1956, the TYC made an application to the Corps of Engineers for construction of a T-dock which extended out into the bay and was used for the club-owned candy boats. A float equipped with diving boards, a slide was used for swimming. Boats would load and unload off of this. It was essentially a marina. It didn't have slips, but it was a marina. Parking at the time was along Riverside Drive, as it was with the previous Fall River Yacht Club. By 1964, the club had well over 200 memberships, consisting of both families and single members. Zoning was established in 1964, although it still allowed for expansion of non-conforming uses up until 1992, something to remember. In 1964, the TYC property to the east of Riverside Drive, the clubhouse, was zoned residential, making the TYC clubhouse a legal non-conforming use. The property to the west, the marina, was zoned commercial and was later rezoned waterfront, reflecting the town's desire to promote water uses in this area. It was a seemingly harmless subdivision of the TYC properties that has become the root of the clubhouse rebuilding problems that we seek to rectify. In 1970, the front porch of the house was enclosed. Some of you may or may not recall the house. It was an old Victorian. It had a wraparound porch, and the front section of the porch was enclosed. Although we didn't consider that an expansion, expansion was allowable up until 1992 by town zoning ordinance. In 1987, an application was made and an assent was issued for a pool, which was constructed next to the clubhouse. A pool is an accessory use and not an expansion, although, again, expansion is still allowed by law. The application, the assent went through CRMC. It was done with all the applicable town permits, and it was installed. No one complained. Swimming lessons were subsequently moved from the beach area to the pool. At this time, the harbor was becoming more and more contaminated, and the reason for building the pool, or one of the reasons, was to get into some clean water. An assent was issued in 1988 to reconfigure the existing marina and add slips, bringing the total number up to today's total, which is 21 slips. We have a very small marina, 21. I think there's also 8 moorings associated with it that we rent from the town. As part of the marina permitting process, 5 parking places were located on the beach, and 20 spaces were located behind the house for a total of 25 off-street parking places. Although these parking places were provided, most marina patrons continued to use parking along the street. Again, this occurred before 1992 when expansion was still allowed. There's always been plentiful parking along the street. In 1994, the Campbells purchased the property to our north. Mrs. Campbell had been a member as a child, and her father had been a lawyer for the TYC for a number of years. They were very well aware of what the TYC was, how it operated, and how it looked. In 2003, the Morans purchased the property to our south. The Moran's grandmother owned the property previously, and Jay Moran's had spent summers there growing up. In 2003, the clubhouse was destroyed by fire. I'd like to explain why the TYC needs zoning relief to rebuild. There's 2 factors at play. One is a town ordinance that requires a special use permit to install septic systems within 200 feet of a water body. The TYC naturally is located near the water. The second is that the Superior Court has ruled that our septic system is an expansion of use of our property because of our non-conforming standing. The judge ordered that the TYC obtain a use variance. Now, I'm not a lawyer, but I can see the crunch here. You have 2 things happening. As a matter of law, the Tiverton Zoning Board does not have the authority or ability to grant a use variance together with a special use permit. We're locked in by 2 separate requirements that we can't resolve. The TYC is being held hostage by its septic system, which is needed to get a building permit. You may ask why the TYC needs a larger septic system. We must be expanding. No, we're not. Although our abutters are constantly arguing that the TYC wants to expand, here are the facts. The building that burned was approximately 4,986 square feet over 3 floors. The initial set of plans that we developed in our rebuilding effort, the one that the judge ruled on and was submitted to the town, was 3,472 square feet. That's about 70% of the original floor space of the house that burned. It sat squarely on the foundation. The only place where it overlapped the foundation was a bowed wall in the back of the house, and on the advice of the building official at the time, we've gone through 3 building officials over the 7 years, the building official told us we could square it off. The house that burned contained a porch that was enclosed in 1970, 33 years before the fire. It certainly had building permits. It was on the front page of the Secana Times at the time it went in. No one complained about the enclosing of the porch, and besides, in 1970, that was still before 1992, while you could still expand a non-conforming use. Since the Superior Court ruling, the new clubhouse has again been redesigned. We're trying to move forward, we're trying to build a house. The current plans that were used on our most recent application for a building permit call for a building that has 1,320 square feet on one floor. The enclosed porch has now reverted to an open porch. Just as a comparison, the house that we're proposing to build today would fit into the 3rd floor of that old Victorian that burned on a square footage basis. It sits right on top of the foundation, which is still out there today, and has an open front porch. It's 26% the size of the old house, yet our abutters say that it's still bigger. I just want to give a quick comparison. Sometimes numbers are a little hard to compare. So just on a real basic comparison here. This red piece of paper represents the square footage of the house that burned. This is to scale. The house that we went into court with, that we wanted to rebuild, our first rebuilding effort, here's 4,986 square feet. Our first attempt to rebuild was 3,472 square feet. That's the black on top of the red. Obviously the black is smaller than the red. It's roughly 70% of the original house. The house that we're proposing to build today is 1,320 square feet. It's the yellow square. This is all proportional. Each of these rectangles is proportional to the square footage. So it's a pretty far reach to say that we're trying to expand. The next question that comes up is, with a smaller house, why do we need a larger septic system? Well, as Mr. Tremblay said, there were a few reasons. The very first is when we proposed our initial septic system back in 2004 or so, our neighbors complained it was way too small. They quoted, "You have so many members," almost to the equivalent of saying the town hall needs to have bathrooms for 16,000 people because that's the population of the town and everybody might show up at the same time, which is not exactly realistic. Rather than argue the point, it was cheaper for us to say, expand the system, put in some more flow diffusers, add some chambers. Second, over the years, Rhode Island Department of Environmental Management has changed their criteria. In 1964, this property had a cesspool. In 1987, at the time the pool went in, the marina went in, an ISDS system went in, and it was designed at that time on the criteria by RIDEM. After arguing that the IDS was too small with the neighbors, after arguing that the IDS was too small, the neighbors eventually took us to court and argued that it was too large, that it was an expansion of use. So first they argue it's too small, we make it bigger, and then they say, whoa, look at that, you're expanding. Well, the judge believed that assertion and consequently ordered that the TYC needed a use variance for the proposed ISDS system. The second reason the TYC must get zoning relief is that the judge ordered that the TYC cannot rent slips and moorings, even though the slips and moorings are located on a piece of property that's zoned for a marina by town ordinance and is permitted by CRMC. We have all the permits in place. But by virtue of the TYC owning a non-conforming property on the water, she said it makes, but by virtue of the TYC owning a conforming property on the water, she says it makes our non-conforming property more non-conforming and is prohibiting us from using our marina. Last year, we had to move out all the boats out of the marina until the Supreme Court gave us a stay, which was September. We brought them back. That was a huge financial loss for the town, for the club. Anyone can operate, according to the judge, anyone can operate our marina except the TYC. We're blocked out from operating it. A group of European investors can operate a marina next door that's going to cater to large yachts, but a group of Tiverton residents can't operate a marina for small boats here in our own town. This makes no sense and can only be corrected through a zoning change. A final reason for the TYC needs zoning relief is that we can no longer offer swimming lessons to non-members. This may not seem like a big thing to most people, but over the years, the town has taught hundreds, I presume, of kids to swim in our pool. There's been swimming lessons on Grinnell's Beach at times, but we don't have the lion's mane jellyfish in our pool. We have the pools heated. The lessons are very reasonably priced. It's something the club is very proud of offering to the town. It's very important for a coastal community, and I feel very strongly about that one particular point. Now let me talk a little bit about the proposed zoning amendment. We considered two options for zoning relief. The first was to make the clubhouse part of the waterfront zone. We were going to ask for that, to bring the zone from across the street, or to create a new transitional zone. We chose the latter because the transitional zone was consistent with the town planner's vision. We talked to them. In our whole rebuilding process, we've talked a lot with town officials to try to see where do we go, how do we do things. The town planner was very helpful, and he shared his thoughts, and we agreed with him. The proposed amendment creates a transition zone between the waterfront and the larger residential area behind it. The new zone is consistent with the comprehensive plan. It maintains the waterfront aura. It supports access to the basin for hundreds of people. We have like 140 families. We've had 200 families that can get down and use the basin. It provides recreational activities for children and adults, water safety, and a host of other things. The change in the use table is minimal between the zone that the house is in right now in R40 and this proposed waterfront-related zone. A yacht club or marina is presently allowed in the current R40 zone under a special use permit. We are asking that we be allowed by right in the proposed waterfront-related district. If there is a concern that will become Marina Row, as some people have said, you have to consider the marinas are across the street and they're already zoned for marinas. If we're going to be Marina Row, it's already going to happen. As far as Yacht Club Row, I think a question might be asked is how many petitions have we gotten for a special use permit for a yacht club in Tiverton in the past 50 years? And I think the answer is 0 from everyone I've talked to. No one's ever asked to have a second yacht club in town. The amendment reduces the lot size from 40,000 square feet to 20,000 square feet. Of the 13 lots in the proposed zone, only 4 lots meet the R40 minimum. If the lot size is reduced to 20,000 square feet as proposed, 9 lots, or almost 3/4 of this zone, will now be conforming by size. It's misleading to characterize this area as having large lots. They don't. There's a few large lots and most of them are smaller. This amendment benefits the area by making the properties more conforming. I've heard that's a case all over Tiverton where the zoning and the lots don't match. Houses along the west side of Riverside Drive are set close to the road, creating a village environment. They're very close to the road. The proposed setback in the waterfront-related zone would be larger than that in the waterfront zone, but less than that in the R40 zone. It would be 15-foot setbacks. Now, there's 2 secondary issues that we have stumbled across as we've tried to rebuild our club. And these are secondary. We included them in the ordinance, but they're not the primary thing we're trying to accomplish, but I think they're very important. The first is the existing Tiverton zoning ordinance does not require off-street parking for marinas because marina parking requirements are determined by floor space. A marina has no floor space. CRMC has parking requirements for marinas, and we're proposing that the town adopt the CRMC requirement for parking. The next item is something that's I've been involved in actually for many years, is the present zoning ordinance requires a special use permit for septic systems within 100 or 200 feet of water bodies. I think it's maybe a 125 for residential and 200 for everything above a single-family house. While well-intentioned, this requirement is an additional monetary and time burden to anyone upgrading their septic system. I've been involved with the on-site wastewater management program here in town, and I think upgrading septic systems is critical to this town. We should not impede that in any way, shape, or form. Before an applicant can come before the Zoning Board of Review to request a special use permit, they have to possess a septic system design approved by Rhode Island Department of Environmental Management. So they first have to go to DEM, get their system approved. It's reviewed by biologists, soil scientists, engineers, and approved. Then you go before the Zoning Board of Review. The Zoning Board of Review does not have technical expertise in soil science, biology, and engineering. It's volunteers. There's very well-trained people, but in all different fields. They're not equipped to evaluate whether a special use permit should be issued or not. The same is true of the Wastewater Commission. Again, today we have very knowledgeable people on the Wastewater Commission, but we have no criteria for who we appoint to wastewater. You don't have to be an engineer, have a PE, have any kind of background. It's volunteers again. So you can never be sure what the makeup of a board is going to be. Rhode Island DEM has environmentalists, scientists, and engineers and staff, and they're charged with the review of approval of systems. At best, the Tiverton special use permit requirement is a rubber stamp. It costs time and money for people to go through this process where they've already gone through DEM and gotten the approval to build their system. There was a case in Charlestown where a board denied a permit after it was approved by DEM, and the courts basically threw it out. They said the town doesn't have the expertise to do this. I think protecting the water is very, very important. The system that we have right now with these special use permits does not achieve what its ideal is. And I don't know how you should improve it, but if you don't have anything better, what's in there right now really doesn't help anybody. It just costs people time and money. Before I finish, I just have a couple questions for the council. And the first is the TYC good for Tiverton? Yeah, I look around here today. I've been to a lot of town council meetings. This is the best turnout I've seen in many, many years. I think you have to answer yes. The TYC is good for the town. If you look around, a lot of the people in your boards and commissions are members of the TYC. They volunteer, they come forward, and they take on a challenge. Now you have to ask yourself, where in town would you want to have a yacht club? And I think the answer is Riverside Drive is probably the best spot in town for a yacht club. And we've been there for 54 years. So we need zoning relief so that we can rebuild where we've been for the past 54 years. Without it, the Tiverton Yacht Club is going to disappear. Thank you very much.
If I may present to the council, this is a petition signed by other Tiverton residents, some of whom are here tonight, collected by yacht club members like Mr. Kaczynski and other officers. The coffee stain on the first sheet is mine.
Please hand it to the clerk.
We can't stay a non-conforming use. One of the things the judge said with that septic system is just because it was enlarged, it had the capacity to hold more sewage. That was an expansion of a non-conforming use, and we'd have to get a use variance which we can't get. You know what that means? That means if sewerage came down Riverside Street, everybody in that street could hook up, but us if we existed, because that would increase our capacity to handle sewerage, so we couldn't even hook up to that. The other thing is, because of the tandem decision the judge made saying, if you have a non-conforming use, you can't own the marina across the street, what that says is if we sold the marina tomorrow, anybody in the world but us could operate that marina, but it's been our marina for almost 35 years. I'd like to call another person right now, Tanya Bransky. She's from the department, she's from Natural Resources, which is an outfit that does a lot of DEM work and a lot of coastal resources work, and she's going to tell you about the water quality in the town of Portsmouth.
Sorry, I didn't.
No, private consulting. I have her resume. Where would you like best, sir? Can you all see it here? Those have reduced copies as well, but it's a handout.
Get reduced copies?
Yes.
I need you to sign in on the pad and please state your name for the record.
Good evening. My name is Tanya Bransky. I'm with Natural Resource Services, a private wetlands consulting firm in Harrisville, Rhode Island. I have a copy of my resume for your review. I have been with the firm since May of 2003 after receiving my degree from the University of Rhode Island in Environmental Science and Management. Sure, too short. Does that work? Yeah, that should be better.
Do you have any extra copies of your exhibits? I'm sorry, it's me over here, anytime. Do you have extra copies of your exhibits?
I believe there was only 6 people, so I only made 6 or 8 copies.
Okay.
I apologize. I'll make sure that the clerk had a copy of everything. Oh, those are other graphics. So, yeah, those are not the same. I'm here to give a brief overview of the CRMC's water types and their designations, especially dealing with the town of Tiverton. The Rhode Island Coastal Resources Management Program was federally adopted in 1978. As part of these regulations, the CRMC has assigned water classes to all the coastal waters within the state of Rhode Island. These classes vary from Type 1 conservation areas up to Type 6, which is considered industrial water. The CRMC has designated specific water types in which they allow marinas and recreational boating facilities. These include Type 3 waters, which they consider high-intensity boating, Type 4 waters, which are called multi-purpose waters, as well as type 5 waters, which are commercial recreational harbors. These are all described in one of the packets that I handed out. I photocopied portions of the regulations. It's section 200, titled Tidal and Coastal Pond Waters. The type 1 water classification areas, which are conservation areas, and the type 2 low intensity areas, as well as the type 6 industrial waterfronts and commercial navigational channels, prohibit new or the expansion of existing marinas. So those water classification areas are not allowed by the CRMC to have any type of new marinas installed or permitted. I put together several graphics for you. The first one is a large blown out map showing the entire town of Tiverton, as well as its coastlines and its CRMC jurisdiction. It's the large graphic that's shown over there. The town outline is in white, and the different color classifications are represented in the legend in the bottom right-hand corner. Pull this closer if that's okay. As you can see, the entire southern portion of the town of Tiverton is currently identified as type 1 and type 2 waters. These are the waters where the marinas and expansion of marinas are not allowed. The purple that's along the northern part of the town is the industrial waterfront area, which also does not allow any type of marinas to be permitted without a type of change to the water classification. Currently, the only areas within the town that is designated as appropriate for recreational boating facilities are the yellow type 3 waters and the red type 5 waters. You can see that they extend between here and here, encompassing beneath the Secana River Bridge. Under section 200.3 of the regulations, the CRMC specifically states, if I can find where I put it, that the council's goal is to preserve, protect, and where possible, enhance type 3 areas for high-intensity boating and the services that support this activity. They also state that the highest priority uses of type 3 waters and its adjoining land areas within council jurisdiction are marinas, mooring areas, public launching ramps, and other facilities that support recreational boating and enhance public access to tidal waters, as well as boatyards and other businesses that service recreational boaters. So from a CRMC's perspective, if they were to look at the town of Tiverton, they would designate the yellow type 3 area as well as the red type 5 area as the only 2 waters that they currently have available within the town for these type of recreational boating facilities.
Tanya, will you tell the council this type 5 is a new designation? Will you tell them why it's been changed?
I believe that the type 5 waters are adjacent to the villages on Mount Bay, which I believe went under review by the town through the CRMC, and that was recently changed from type 6 waters to type 5 waters. I believe that was a town application that had gone through the CRMC. So prior to that change, there was no additional type 5 waterfront on that portion of the property, on that portion of the town either.
Tanya, is there any exception of having a marina in a type 2 or a type 1?
There is an exception. The CRMC specifically prohibits having them, specifically in type 1 waters. It's under section 200.1, highlighted in the packet, where it says the construction of recreational boating facilities are all prohibited in type 1 waters, as well as in type 2 waters, they prohibit the expansion of any marinas. If you currently have a marina, you're allowed to keep it. You cannot install new ones or expand upon them beyond 25%, excuse me.
Is it fair to say to the council that the whole coastline from Little Compton to Fall River, the only place you could have a yacht club that has a marina is between the bridges, a little south of the bridges up to the Starwood property?
Under the CRMC's current jurisdictions, yes. And their water type classifications.
I have no further questions. Tommy, if you do.
Does anyone on the council have any questions of Tommy?
Can I ask you a question? Mr. Kaczynski, you indicated that you had two options available to you. One was to expand the waterfront district, and the other was to establish what is currently being called a transitional water, a water-related district. Was there any other reason? You said you were cooperating or considering the town planner's suggestion of developing the water-related district. But was there any reason for not going with the expanded water district other than to cooperate with the planning officer?
I think it's mostly that we were trying to cooperate with the town. We were trying to follow the pattern that here the town was developing to try to bring more properties into conformance. We didn't want to do anything that was contrary to what the town's plans were. I'm sure we're looking a little bit also at what would be the easiest for us to accomplish, what would be the most likely to accomplish. We felt that the waterfront related zone would be the most successful.
Okay, thank you very much.
If it pleases the council, my next witness I'm going to call is Richard Karuga, who's a real estate expert, and after him, Stuart Hardy. They both reviewed the town comprehensive plan, which is kind of the Bible for zoning changes. You can't make a zoning change unless it's in conformity with the comprehensive plan. So I asked to call Mr. Karuga.
Good evening, Madam Chair and Council. My name is Richard Karuga. I am here in addition to providing services to the Tiverton Yacht Club as a member of the planning board within Newport County. I want to add my support to the work done by the Tiverton Planning Department and the Tiverton Planning Board regarding the proposed amendments to the zoning ordinance, because I personally believe that whenever there's an opportunity to strengthen the relationship of the town's property owners with their town's comprehensive community plan, it benefits both the town and the citizens of the town. I am presently the vice chair of the planning board for the city of Newport. I'm a licensed appraiser. I'm a licensed broker. I've served in several capacities within the city of Newport, including the development of the North End Master Plan, commissions for the city of Newport as well. And obviously, I spent a lot of time in the planning board function reviewing the consistency of zoning and other compliance issues with their respective comprehensive plan. I've evaluated the proposed amendments of this zoning ordinance, which is the subject of this hearing. My purpose was to determine the consistency with the Tiverton Comprehensive Community Plan. I concluded there are numerous and important examples in the Comprehensive Community Plan that support the proposed amendments. I've identified 4 categories in particular that I think might be of help to the council. A copy of this will be given to the clerk as well. The first category has to do with procedural consistencies. Does the council's activities rely on a clear understanding of how the comprehensive community plan exists? Interestingly enough, starting with underlying authority of the proposed amendments, the plan, your plan, at the very beginning, appropriately importantly, on page 1 says that the plan is intended as a framework for accomplishing community aspirations and intentions, and then includes the following language, quote, "When reviewing development proposals, considering amendments to the town's zoning ordinance and subdivision regulations, and making decisions that affect land use and development, town officials rely on the plan to guide their actions." Additionally, later in the plan, on page 52, are more specific statements made relating to the proposed amendments. And this you would find in probably most community comprehensive plans. Again, I'll quote, "The establishment of land use districts through zoning is the most widely applied method of regulating land use throughout all the communities in the state of Rhode Island." The second category has to do with addressing a specific property. I find it very interesting that a comment has been made this evening that how can we possibly be addressing a specific property? Yet, right in your comprehensive community plan, there are two very clear instances in which the town council acted in the best interest of the town. The first had to do with the general benefits that are derived on page 6, which talk about the Nada Farm, which was a 230-acre parcel of farm and woodland. In this instance, rather than permit unwanted development, the town initiated action to form the Tiverton Land Trust, with the result that the property was acquired as permanent open space and is now known as Barton Great Reserve. The second example, also in the plan on page 40, has to do with the visual quality section of the natural and cultural resource policies, which states, because of the special historic qualities of the area, the local commercial district around Tiverton Four Corners merits special consideration. This town, then in 2001, zoning revisions established a village commercial district for the Four Corners area. So you do have the authority to do that. The third, location considerations. Location, of course, is just tantamount to any issues with land use because you can't move land. So you have to deal with whatever the application is of the comprehensive community plan. And with respect to specific location, it says on page 60, promote land use patterns that are consistent with natural resource constraints. You just heard from the CRMC representative that we have a very serious natural resource constraint in terms of types of water that can accommodate a yacht club. That those things have to be environmentally and economically sound, those decisions, minimizing compatibility among users, and preserve Tiverton's rural and small town character. Now, if town council does not want a yacht club, that's pretty straightforward. But if they do want a yacht club, there aren't many choices of where it can be. With respect to the yacht club being included in the proposed amendment as a matter of right, I would point you to your own comprehensive community plan on page 49, which identifies the Tiverton Yacht Club by name as a waterfront use, although it's in a residential zone. And hopefully you'll address that. The last issue has to do with the applicability of town priorities. How important is this? How important is having this yacht club here, besides all the people that showed up this evening? Okay, go back to page 13 of your comprehensive community plan. this is what your plan says. Special character of Tiverton is derived from the interrelationship among the basic functions and unique qualities of the community. And then it goes on to say, the plan includes the following 4 basic functions that can be identified and underlie everything that you do with respect to land in Tiverton. First, its unique environment. Second, that it's a waterfront town. Third, that it's a residential community. And fourth, it's a location for business opportunity. If the Tiverton Yacht Club can come back to operating status because of this amendment change, it will satisfy all 4 of those functions. Thank you.
Excuse me, is a report being submitted by this witness, or can I have what it is that he's reading from?
The answer is no, there's no report, and the answer is no.
I really wasn't asking for counsel's position. It's almost read verbatim to this board. I think it would be appropriate. It is effectively been presented as a report. I think it would be appropriate to give a copy to counsel.
No. Good evening. My name is Stu Hardy. I'm a director of the Tiverton Yacht Club. I live at 51 Summerfield Lane.
Is there going to be an answer?
Here in town.
Please sit down.
And,
Thank you.
Mr. Campbell, to answer your question, it'll be part of the public record and you can acquire it that way.
I'm currently a member of the planning board, and I also served on the committee that drafted the 2006 update of the comprehensive community plan. I'd like to make a few more comments that tie in with what the gentleman just said. As you know, the zoning ordinance is based and derived from the Tiverton Comprehensive Community Plan. So what we are doing here tonight must be conforming with the comp plan. And I submit that the current programs and uses of the Tiverton Yacht Club are not only entirely consistent with the comp plan, but in fact contribute to the implementation of specific goals and objectives in that plan. So I'll be a little more specific. Take the land use chapter, for example. The plan identifies the Tiverton Yacht Club, as we've just heard, as a major contributor to the maritime quality of the Stonebridge area. And I quote, "This area has a maritime aura with active waterfront uses backed by older residences and several institutional uses. Waterfront uses include the public Grinnell's Beach, several commercial establishments, the Tiverton Yacht Club, a boat launch, and several maritime-related businesses along the Sakonnet River." Later on, the land use chapter identifies an objective as such, quote, "Promote marine-related land uses within the non-residential zoning districts along the Tiverton waterfront." That's page 60. Our marina, now at risk of being closed as an expansion of a non-conforming use of the clubhouse, is in a non-residential district, and it is a major contributor to waterfront access and activity to many people in town, as Wayne said. Land Use Policy 5A stresses the importance of public access to the waterfront, which the club facilitates through the marina and the beach. The Open Space, Coastal Resources, and Recreation chapter of the comprehensive plan stresses the importance of providing, quote, "recreational opportunities for the citizens of Tiverton." Policy 12 calls for more recreational opportunities for all citizens and emphasizes the need for recreational opportunities for older teens. The club provides a sail training program for older teens, as well as swim lessons for preteens. This is a community service that hundreds of Tivertonians have enjoyed for decades. The club is certainly a recreational resource for the town. Now, the economic development chapter of the plan underscores the importance of the waterfront as a generator of jobs and revenue, and cites the need to encourage more marine-related uses. An objective of this chapter is to, quote, promote the utilization of Tiverton's waterfront for marine-related uses that would enhance the local economy and the town's maritime character, unquote. Specifically, the plan cites the marinas along Tiverton Basin, including the Club Marina, as facilities that contribute to economic development. That's page 141. Our member boats purchase fuel, supplies, equipment, get repairs from neighboring businesses like Standish's Boat Yard and Quality Yacht Services. Elsewhere in the economic development chapter, the need for boosting tourism is cited as a potential generator of growth. Our club boosts tourism by providing courtesy slips and moorings to visiting boats from other clubs on Narragansett Bay. These visitors buy supplies, enjoy our local restaurants, among other things. Policy 12 of the economic development chapter states that, quote, recreational fishing and boating should also be encouraged and expanded through the development of more slips and or an establishment with docking facilities, as well as with the development of facilities for kayak and canoe deployment, unquote. Our marina and beach certainly support this policy. The clubhouse and marina will pay significant property taxes and help diversify the tax base as well. Finally, goals 2 and 3 of the Vision for Tiverton section, that's pages 19 and 20, underscore the importance of a close-knit community that promotes unity and connects citizens in, quote, close person-to-person relationships. The Tiverton Yacht Club, like other clubs in town, facilitates community cohesion by bringing people and families together in a social setting. So I will conclude by saying that the Tiverton Yacht Club contributes to the goals and objectives of the Tiverton Comprehensive Community Plan in a very specific manner. Our zoning ordinance should be amended to make the club a conforming use at its present location, where it has been for over 50 years. Thank you.
It's necessary to spend time on a comprehensive plan because that's the cornerstone for making zoning decisions. But I'd like to just point out to the council this time, our zoning request is not a drastic zoning request. If you look at the use tables of what's permitted there now and what's permitted in the water-related district, the sole change is to make a yacht club a permitted use rather than a special use permit. That's the sole change in the use table. And that, we had support from the Harbor Commission, the Planning Board, and the Town Plan on that. The only other major significance is in your waterfront district, your large R10, and you have the road dividing to acre lots. The town planner thought it was a good idea in the sense that there's 13 lots involved here. 4 now conform. If you approve this zoning change, then 9 of the 13 will conform. At this time, I'd like to call Greg Jones, the Vice President.
Good evening, my name is Greg Jones. I'm the Vice Commodore of the Tiverton Yacht Club. I don't want to take too much of your time tonight, but I want to talk a little bit about non-conforming use. As you know, we were established in 1945. We moved to our present location in 1957, and then zoning was established in 1964. I imagine at that time the directors of the Yacht Club weren't too concerned about that because the feeling was that we would become grandfathered. And as grandfathered, we could remain a yacht club, and everything would be fine as long as we didn't say become a gas station or a lumber yard, we should be okay. Well, let's fast forward to the 21st century, and we've learned a little bit more about non-conforming use in the Superior Court of Newport. And the court wanted to know, well, in 1964, yeah, you were a yacht club, okay, but how many cars were parked out behind the building, how many kids were in swimming classes, how many boats were at the docks, how many parties did you have in all season, and a lot of details like that. I think that the directors back in 64 didn't really anticipate that, so they didn't say a lot of evidence for that, but fortunately, we do have some members who were present in 64, so they were able to give evidence. If we have to go through this in another 40, 50 years, I don't expect there will be too many people that will remember 1964. In 1964, I was in college, it was the 60s. I'm not sure I remember anything from the 60s, but 64. But, so my point is, though, it's going to get more difficult, and as time goes on, it'll become impossible. But, you know, from the standpoint of the court, it seems to me this is okay. This is fine. The court doesn't look at, you know, what's right and what happened and what's logical. They look at the law. The law says we're non-conforming, and as Ken mentioned, and our Judge Sundberg said non-conforming use is a thorn in the side of proper zoning and should not be perpetuated any longer than necessary. The policy of zoning is to abolish non-conforming uses as speedily as justice will permit. Well, we don't really agree with the judge's ruling. However, the court's message is pretty clear. Non-conforming uses should not be perpetuated. Now, the judge, fortunately for us, could simply eliminate the club because you have some grandfathered rights, but she could, and she did, eliminate our marina and also block construction of our ISDS and hence our clubhouse. So, what will the courts take away next? Even if this decision is overturned, and it's going to be 2-3 years before we find out, but even if it's overturned, we still have the same problem of non-conforming use. Challenges in the future will lead to the same sort of decisions. What the judge did say, however, is that we should get further zoning relief, and she was pretty clear about that. We've looked at the ordinance. Our lawyer has looked at the ordinance. This is it. There is no other zoning relief. We need a zone change. If there was other zoning relief, we would ask for it. I think that without further zoning relief, this club will eventually cease to exist. It won't go away this year, it won't go away next year. At some point in the future, I think as the courts strip away, it will basically be gone. I think we all agree that a yacht club is good for Tiverton. No one has said, even our neighbors, they want the yacht club to go away. The club is mentioned in the town comprehensive plan, as we've heard. Yacht clubs are encouraged by CRMC, as we've heard. And the waterfront zone allows yacht clubs by right. We could try to build a clubhouse in the waterfront zone, but I think we'd all have to stand single file because it's fairly narrow along Riverside Drive. Yacht clubs are allowed by special use permit on Route 40, and that's our current zone. However, we can't get a special use permit. We need a variance for ISDS and so on. So the question I have for the town council is, does the town council want the yacht club in Tiverton or not? Is the yacht club an important part of the town? Is it an asset to the town? Is it in keeping with the character of the town? We're asking you to change the zoning to correct these, I think, deficiencies in the zoning law that make this a problem for us. The zoning plan that we propose, as you've heard, is one suggested by the town planner, the planning board, harbor commission. Every step along the way, we've worked with the town and commissions to get the permits we need, and we followed their recommendations. At this point now, we can't go any further. We need your help. I want to say a few things about the impact of the yacht club on the community. Like I said, I think we all agree the yacht club is good for the community. And, well, I have some things here. I'll read them. It basically adds in the various publications around town and describing houses for sale. And one of the phrases you often see is walking distance to beach, walking distance to library, walking distance to marina, walking distance to yacht club. You don't often see or ever see walking distance to gas station or walking distance to law offices or anything like that. So I think that, real estate agents in town pretty much agree that a yacht club is a desirable thing in the community. And you might be able to do some theoretical studies on how house prices would change. But I think that the working real estate agents know the truth here. I think that the impact that a yacht club has in the neighborhood is similar to the impact, say, a library might have, an elementary school, a town hall, a town playground. These are things that ordinarily are found in a residential zone. They're consistent with the residential zone. Our club is active about 3 months of the year. Most of the activity is sailing. and swim lessons in the pool and such. We operate mostly during the daylight hours. We have occasional social events, weekly potluck family events. There's been no complaints that I know from anybody in the area for the parties that we have. In fact, last year we had a tea party, and I noticed that the neighbors were out on their porches and listening to the music. So I don't think they were complaining. I think that the activity of the yacht club is much less than, say, a large working boat yard with a big submarina, hauling boats around, launching boats and sandy boats and so on. And no one is objected to a large marina next door to ours as well. The last thing I'd like to talk to you about is our negotiations with the neighbors. Well, first of all, I'd like to say we're a yacht club. We want to get along with our neighbors. We don't want to fight with our neighbors. There's no benefit to us to not get along with our neighbors. And we've had numerous formal and informal discussions. I think we've received an email that goes into detail about some of those negotiations, but I have listed about 10 occasions, starting with John Foley, spoke to Mr. Campbell, we've worked with our lawyer, Lisa Souza. I talked to Mrs. Brady for a while, and Kay Campbell. Peter Franklin worked with Mr. Campbell. Joe Nicholson helped with the discussion with the Morans. Father Peter at the church worked with us, the Campbells and Morans, looking for a settlement. We met with the Campbells and Morans at the town hall and actually received some positive results there. Court order negotiations, formal negotiations, and I never quite understood those. We never actually talked to anybody, best I can tell. But the lawyers on that and said it wasn't working. Dr. Flanagan has met with the Campbells and Morans, and most recently, Jim Rogers and Will Help for me have had some discussions with the Campbells and the Morans. I think we're still talking with them. I hope we're still talking to them and hope to find a solution. It's a difficult problem. There's two parties we have to deal with, and we sort of are reluctant to agree with one without agreeing with both. However, we have made some concessions. We've redesigned our ISDS system in response to the neighbors' issues. We've done that twice. We've redesigned our clubhouse to make it smaller, something they asked us for. We've also worked with them on some other minor issues, like the placement of our bathroom trail and so on. Where we stand is that we don't have an agreement yet, but I hope at some point we can do that. But regardless of the outcome tonight, I hope to continue talking with the neighbors. I feel it's important. In conclusion, our issues are not really with the neighbors. Our issues are with the court. The TYC is a valuable part of the community, but due to the changes in the courts, I mean, some people say, what's changed? How's the outcome changed over the years? And my feeling is, what has changed is the concept of non-conforming use. And the only way we can fix that is for the town to give us its own change. I think for failure for the board, the town council to act on this, basically is a death sentence for the club. I don't think this is what the town ever intended. Please help us save the yacht. Thank you.
I would like to speak. May I?
I think you have to wait. Come on.
I have only one more witness, but I'd like to point something out that I received today. I received a letter from Save the Bay against the change, the setback from the water. I called up this attorney, I think it's Wally Walker or something. Yeah, Wally Walker. And I said to him, you never asked us why we wanted to change. You never spoke to Tiverton Yacht. I said, our concern was we couldn't get a special use permit and a use variance. And that's because this section says you need a special use permit. And we need a use variance. You can't get that within your zone. You can sometimes, because the enabling legislation was changed about 8 years ago that said you could actually treat non-conforming uses and say they can expand as a matter of right or by special exception. But you have austere non-conforming use which says you can't expand it or enlarge it unless you have a use variance. So I want to bring this to attention because I got the letter this afternoon, and I also know that the wastewater management doesn't support this. And it's not our position to argue with these boards are, our concern is a very specific concern, our location on the Secana River. And I may suggest to this council, when you make your due consideration, that there are 13 lots affected here. 11 of those lots, if they're more than 125 feet back from the water, don't have to get a special use permit. It's only if it's a commercial, you move it back up to 200. I think we're the only commercial use there, but I think as condos, and I think as a 4-year condo would not pass as single-family resident. So if the council thought about looking at this and making the setback in that particular area 125 feet, that would solve not only our problem, but make us on the same footing as all neighbors. I'd like to call Mr. Brady now, please.
Good evening, and thank you for your patience, members of the council. I'm John Brady, a resident of Portsmouth, but perhaps the oldest member of the Tiverton Yacht Club. I've been a member of I had been a member of the Newport Yacht Club for a number of years, and in 1965 I bought a new ensign-class sailboat, 22.5-foot sailboat. And at the time I had 4 daughters, the oldest of which was 9. And I didn't think that the Newport Yacht Club was a proper place to bring up a young family, in that the first floor, as you entered, there was a bar and the usual barflies hanging around. So I looked around for a yacht club that was family-oriented and had a good sailing program. The Tiverton Yacht Club filled the bill for me. At the time, Roland Foley was the Commodore of the Yacht Club. In 1965, I believe some of his family are probably in the audience. To prepare myself for this evening, I reread our 1965 logbook. The first thing I noticed was in the history section. It was reported that in 1946, the club voted to occupy the second floor of the Standish Boatyard, what is now Standish Boatyard, and that Irving B. Humphrey, Jr. was elected to the board of directors. I believe his son and grandson are in the audience tonight. As we know, in 1956, the Yacht Club moved to the Victorian house that we occupied for the last 50 years. The size of the Tiverton Yacht Club in 1965 is of particular interest. The log reports that our membership in the past year, that is 1964, the year zoning went into effect, was 234 memberships for a total of 946 individuals, including children. Now, for the last 7 years, our membership has hovered around 140. Currently, we have 264 adults and 210 children, for a total of 474 individuals. That's half the 1965 number. And yet, our abutters have been concerned about our expansion. Clearly, those concerns are unfounded. Furthermore, I don't remember parking as a serious problem in 1965. Of course, until the 1938 hurricane, the Fall River Yacht Club was there, and they had no off-site parking either. The 1965 logbook notes that our facilities are among the finest, and that we have one of the most active social and racing calendars on the entire East Coast. Our fleet included 34 Candy class, 6 Indian class, 3 Ensign class, 4 Town class, 2 Lightning class sailboats, and 18 other boats of more than 30-foot length. Clearly, we were more than an off-the-beach oriented sailing club, as has been claimed by some. To make up the makeup of the club in 1965 was much as it is today, ranging from blue-collar workers to executives. The best sailors in the Bay in those days were Charlie LaRue and Tom Toole, both blue-collar workers. Tom's sons, Rich and John, are in the audience tonight. Prominent Tiverton families, Humphreys, Durfees, Barkers, Raposas, Hollands, to name a few, were also members. And I'm sorry if I've omitted any. Many of their offspring are with us tonight. A number of them have learned to sail and swim in the yacht club. A number of Fall River residents were also members of the yacht club, probably hangovers from the previous Fall River Yacht Club. One in particular, Tom Rogers, a mill owner who built the Sheraton Islander on Goat Island, was an active member. We all worked together, drunks like me and executives like him. John Lyons, a Tiverton state representative, and his family, some of whom are here tonight, were members. John went on to serve as the first chairman of the Coastal Resources Management Council. He was also a Tiverton state representative, as you may remember. Many, if not all, the doctors and lawyers in town were members, and the pastors of the various local churches were honorary members. When zoning was put into effect in 1964, it was of little consequence to the club. I never remember hearing it discussed. We were pre-existing. The ordinance permitted 100% expansion. And let's face it, many of the town's leaders were members. For years, our next-door neighbors on both sides were club members. In short, it was a wonderful family club, and it still is. In the late 1960s, I raced my ensign Wednesday night in the basin with my family as crew. In 1970, I added a Triton-class 28-footer to our family fleet. I well remember living on board that boat with 4 daughters and a golden retriever while the new house was being built for us. Then my urge for larger boats took over again, and I bought a 34-footer. And I remember during the 1970s racing out of the Tiverton Basin with Marshall David, who's here tonight, I believe, Don Kidd, and Wally Sunderland in the cruising class races. Town residents gathered on the stone bridge to watch the demolition derby as we raced against the tide and wind through the stone bridge area. Marshall, as I said, and some of his family are with us tonight, and some of his family are members. For years, he owned the Grand Central Market, as you know. Important figure in town. Up until the fire, as far as I know, we had no police complaints. There hung in the clubhouse a letter from Mrs. Moran next door, Jay Moran's grandmother, congratulating us on being such a good neighbor. Even though the membership was much larger, there never was a complaint about parking, loud noise, or poor behavior. I want to say a few words about children at the yacht club. I must admit that at times I thought we were providing low-cost child care. But the skills those kids learned stayed with them, and many have big boats themselves, and their kids are learning to sail and swim in the club. Today, if you drive by that school when school is out, if you drive by the club when school is out, you'll see youngsters learning to sail, learning to swim, doing crafts, etc. Thursday nights are especially fun as we have family potluck buffets of various themes. And the pool is open, miniature golf, Other games are in process. When we had a clubhouse, we had talent shows, concerts, weekly dances, all put on by the kids with the supervision of Jim and Dee Rogers. We're most proud of one of the youngsters, John Dias, whose father was a Tiverton police officer, whose mother was a nurse at St. Anne's and is with us tonight. John, who is now a lead performer with the Jersey Boys, who played at the Providence Performing Arts Center a couple of weeks ago, got early experience playing musical revues at the Tiverton Yacht Club during summers of his high school days. That's in the mid-90s. Well, we got along just fine for 40 years as a pre-existing non-conforming use. It was because nothing we ever did was challenged by either the town, who always gave us the permits we needed, or the neighbors who were always friendly. For the past 7 years, we've been kicked when we were down, using the zoning ordinance to club us. As an octogenarian, I have been deprived of the pleasure of using the clubhouse for 7 years. Last year, I had to remove my boat from the marina for the entire season. I hope the council will act favorably on the rezoning, as it would appear that's the only way that we can be assured of continuing the fine record the club has of serving generations of local people. As has been pointed out by other speakers, in our opinion, rezoning will have no adverse effect on the rest of the neighborhood. Thank you.
We have no further witnesses. We will answer any questions the council has. We would like to reserve the opportunity to give a concluding statement at the end of the public session, please. Thank you.
Yes, please.
That's my mother-in-law.
I'll tell them who I am.
And hopefully she'll speak in my favor.
Just give her a chance.
You need to lower that for me. Probably broke it, but that's okay. My name is Nancy Brady. I'm not related to John Brady. I am related to the neighbor, Kate Campbell. Nancy Brady. And I have fond memories of the yacht club, very fond memories. My children belonged. I sat on the beach every day. They took sailing lessons. They had a sunfish. I didn't know what they were talking about at the dinner table, so I took sailing lessons. So I go way back. However, I had fond memories until, and I'm not sure what year it was, but I know it was in June, and it was after the fire. And my husband and I were going to take my two daughters out because it was their birthdays, June 23rd and 24th. So I'm not sure what this date was. But at the yacht club, standing on the empty lot, was many children and many adults. I didn't know what was happening. Mr. Jones came over and he parked his car in a manhole. I don't know whose belonged to that, but I know there's a drain that goes through and it crushed the manhole. My son-in-law, David Campbell, the attorney, went up to the people at the yacht club and said, would he please get his car off that manhole? The language which these members, right here, I couldn't believe it. I couldn't believe it. And we were in the car ready to go out, and I jumped out of the car and I said, I cannot believe the way you're speaking in front of these children. My husband said, Nancy, just get in the car. We couldn't go out to dinner. I was so upset. I'm very upset tonight, too. My daughter has been abused by the neighbors verbally. I was in the car with her. We had yacht club members throwing obscene gestures at me. So I don't have fond memories of the yacht club. And I really don't believe the Campbells wanted to prevent them from building. We do worry about all the money at the town. I'm sorry. I really don't believe that. I really don't believe that.
Let's be respectful, please.
Very difficult.
They never have been. Never.
Please, it's very difficult for me to get up. My daughter and I were in the car one day, and one of the neighbors, regeneration is just very offensive. My daughter got on the car phone and she said, Father Peter, they're doing it in front of my mother now. My daughter would go into a store and be shunned by the people in town. So then we said, can you control your members? They said, no, we don't. How can we control our members? The whole thing is these members can do whatever they want. They can be abusive, but there's no way to police them. And I really guess that's all I have to say. But I do have fond memories. Unfortunately, I don't have them anymore. Thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. Brady.
Hi, good evening. Dana Alcock, 72 Leonard Drive. Alcock. Mrs. Brady, thank you for those words. I didn't realize that you had those difficulties, but certainly I wouldn't, want to hold back the yacht club from going forward based on a couple of instances. And
Mr. Alcock, please address the council.
And certainly, the Tiverton Yacht Club is more than just one set of incidences on one set or multiple sets of nights on any given year. 2 weeks ago, the committee met to have a public hearing and open debate about a proposed oyster aquaculture farm in Nanaquacket Pond. The proposal was for a 300 by 400 foot section of the pond to be given up for the benefit of one person with what was determined to be very little benefit to the town. And today being June 14th, I hope that a number of people have sent in their letters to CRMC because the outcome of that petition to CRMC is outside of the town. The only CRMC will determine whether that goes forward or not. Unfortunately, the power of the town.
Are any of your comments
Yes.
related to the yacht club, please?
Yes, they are. They actually are. Tonight, we're in a meeting to look at a zoning request that will maintain a way of life that has been in town for generations. My grandmother was a member of the yacht club. My mother was a member when she was very young. I was a member when I was young as well. I've been a member as an adult. So I've seen a number of different ways that the club benefits the town. The town does, the Tiverton Yacht Club, if it's allowed to go forward, and obviously I'm in favor of that, benefits the town not only in the fact that there are members that can congregate in a building and provide sailing lessons. As noted, there are members of the community that can come in and get swimming lessons. In addition to that, a number of the members come from outside of Tiverton. They come from Assonet, they come from different parts of Massachusetts. They come into town, they spend their money in the town, they benefit all the businesses that are here. In addition to that, some of them fall in love with the town and they come and they move and they buy, some of them upscale properties, some of them your run-of-the-mill properties. So I would think that influx of people help to drive up the property values that we're concerned with. Additionally, although it's a small piece, the town, the TYC provides property taxes that that help fund town services in the schools, et cetera, et cetera. So tonight before you, you have a zoning amendment which is in control of the board. You guys, you have the power to move that forward. It's a generational decision. It won't be just for the people in this room that are in support of it. It will be for their children. It will be for potentially your children and your grandchildren that will be members and go forward. And with that, I request that you vote in approval of the zoning change. Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Peter Humphrey. I live at 148 Nantucket. I'm a lifelong Tiverton resident, and you might say a product of the Tiverton Yacht Club. Some of my fondest memories growing up are from the Tiverton Yacht Club. I learned to swim, I learned to sail. I've developed lifelong friends from my experiences at the Tiverton Yacht Club. I think the true question before the council tonight is if you believe a yacht club is good for Tiverton. I think all the presentations this evening have highlighted that it will take this change in the zoning and you to step forward in the leadership position and approve the zoning change to the waterfront district. Thank you.
I'm going to ask that at this time, because we're approaching 10 o'clock, that the last few comments that we have, that we could keep them pretty brief, please. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Susan Rodriguez. I live on 80 Leonard Drive, Tiverton. I've been a Tiverton resident for 18 years. I'm not a member of the Tiverton Yacht Club right now, but my children are. And I guess I'd just like to reiterate some of the comments regarding the comprehensive plan about what makes Tiverton a community. And most people would define the waterfront as being a big part of our community, the beach, swimming, sailing, and the access. And that's something that Tiverton Yacht Club helps provide. And I think that everyone would agree that the existence of the Tiverton Yacht Club, you hear about these people from generations, strengthens the community that we have there. And that is an essential part of the comprehensive plan. And I'd like to give a short example. My kids grew up at the Tiverton Yacht Club, going to swimming lessons twice a week, going to sailing lessons three times a week. They're now 16 and 18 years old. One is a sailing instructor at the Tiverton Yacht Club, certified, trained also in CPR and first aid through the Red Cross. And my daughter's a lifeguard at the Tiverton Town Beaches and at South Shore Little Compton. I was looking tonight before coming here at the South Shore schedule. Out of the 12 lifeguards there for this summer, 5 of them grew up at the Tiverton Yacht Club. All those kids are trained in CPR, in first aid, and being a waterfront community, the more people we have trained in that, these kids are always at the beach, on the water, and they're going to be helping all of our community members too, even if they're not on duty. And if we lose that, that's an essential part of the community to lose. So basically, in closing, I think it's important for our waterfront community to have this opportunity for kids, to have these opportunities for families. And basically, the Tiverton Yacht Club has been trying for 7 years to get through this. And we do need your help if we want to continue this vital part of our community. Thank you.
Yes, my name is Sally Black, 64 Broadway Drive. I am a member of the Tiverton Yacht Club. In 1890, a group of families, names familiar to some, the Warrens and the Bordens, were looking for a perfect place to build a yacht club. They chose Riverside Drive. An article written in 1923 states there were 275 members and 100 boats. In 1956, the TYC also chose Riverside Drive to be the perfect site for their club. At this time, I was a member. My parents used to talk about this for the yacht club, but I looked through my archives, and people know here that I have all my archives, and I found a book called This Is Me. And this was written in 1958 and 9. I was in 8th grade. And it said, draw a picture of your house. And anyone that knows me knows I had a beautiful home. And I didn't draw my home, I drew the Tiverton Yacht Club, because that was my second home. The next page says, tell us the most important thing to do, and it was going to the dances on Thursday night. We all know about those. Okay, now we talked about, Mr. Campbell also talked about the marina that's coming next door. The people are from France and England, and they looked everywhere, and they found that this was a perfect spot for a marina. So it's internationally known. And so then we have I'm sorry. I went there with my son. He came back from college. He hadn't been there. Had many wonderful nights there. And we walked up to the top of the steps and he said, I can't look at it, Mom. And why haven't you people done anything about it? Then I took my grandson there, fourth generation member, 5 years old, and he says to me, Shani, where's the house that goes with this pool? So I couldn't answer that either. So I just have to say that all the things that have been said tonight, this is really real. And a place for kids, and especially teenagers, to be safe and supervised, you can't put a price on it. I hope we can all get along with the neighbors. Tiverton Yacht Club, thanks for the memories. It was perfect in the 18, now it's perfect now. Thank you.
Point of order, if I may. It's 10 o'clock. We're going to finish at 11, I guess, tonight, and I'm assuming that we're going to have a carryover. I don't know. I figured that the order was going to be all of those in support going first without restriction, and then those all opposing going after without restriction. But with the line queuing up and the crowd here obviously coming out in great numbers for the yacht club as they always do, I'm assuming that it's going to be a carryover because we're, at this point, not going to be able to present our end of the case. And this is the kind of stuff. We're here because of what the town
Mr. Campbell,
has
how
done and
long
hasn't
do
done
you
for 5
estimate
years.
that you would be taking? I know that you might have some witnesses as well.
Everybody in the zone and across from the zone is opposed and has signed a petition, and they all want to speak.
Okay.
And I have got an appraisal. I have got an appraisal expert, and I have got a planning expert. So I don't. If we want to proceed with unlimited comment from those here in favor of the yacht club and have them tell their personal stories and connections through the years, that's fine. But understand that at some point, the opposition has got to have an unrestricted access to this microphone.
Right, so the answer is what? So how long do you estimate you'll take? An hour? Or
More than an hour.
Days?
I would say, I'm sorry?
7 years? An hour? I just try to get an estimation of how long you're going to take.
I plan on testifying. And you are the third person who has disrespected someone in this audience. We, as citizens of this town, give you respect. Mr. Hannibal told Mr. Campbell to sit down. Earlier in the evening, Mr. Bowling told the other gentleman he's setting up that he was wasting time.
It's the same with the zoning board, the planning board, the building
Well,
officials.
we're not going to resolve
here
it.
Listen, I just approached the chairman to be sure that Mr. Campbell had an opportunity tonight.
Yes, he did.
If he's going to get up and make a presentation, that's one thing. If he's going to present,
We haven't
You're
got
not
respect
very
for 5
respectful either.
years from this town. 5 years.
Okay.
We're here tonight
Mr. Campbell,
because of a complete lack of enforcement in this town
Mr. Campbell,
against this popular community.
Mr. Campbell,
This shouldn't be a
you
popular
are out of order.
You've
Thank
been out
you.
of order. You've been
No.
disrespectful.
I've been listening. I'm listening, and I depend on you to...
You permitted it.
How do I turn this, bring this down for short people?
Understood.
Just have some people wait in line instead of standing up constantly.
Understood.
That is the problem. Thank you. That's what we asked.
Good evening. Can you hear me? My name is Virginia Butterworth. I live at 1690 Main Road, Tiverton. I'm a former member of the Bristol Zoning Board. I'm a member of the Tiverton Yacht Club and wish to speak in support of the requested zoning change. Incidentally, my yacht is a kayak. I need not repeat Mr. Campbell's endless objections to the rebuilding of the Tiverton Yacht Club, which I believe was in existence at its present site well before Mr. Campbell moved to the area. What puzzles me is that Mr. Campbell has expressed no objection to the massive multi-million-dollar expansion of the marina, which sits directly across the road from his property. Surely, the construction and expansion of services to accommodate 300-foot yachts, as reported in the East Bay papers, would be more disruptive, both temporarily during construction and permanently as the marina develops its expanded customer base, than the rebuilding of our modest clubhouse. Yet, from Mr. Campbell, not a peep of protest has been heard. I would be interested in his comments, but perhaps not tonight. Lastly, while only 2 people, apparently, have objected to the rebuilding of the yacht club, their actions have denied to the town and its residents the many benefits the club has provided to this community over the years. Where, I ask you, is the greater good? Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Carl Bjornson. I own 3 properties. One of the 13 lots at 29 Bowen Avenue. And I own 2 other properties in that waterfront area, 222 Riverside and 215 Riverside Drive. I have owned 29 Bowen Avenue. My property abuts Mr. Campbell's. It's the second house to the north of the yacht club. Since 1985, I built it in actually, I built it 23 years ago. During this time, I've been a member of Tiverton Yacht Club. My 2 oldest daughters have grown up there, gone on to college, and my youngest daughter, 11 years old, is still a member there. Tiverton Yacht Club is a special place, a place where special people, many volunteers. As an example, you can sit and listen to both sides. There are emotions. People have been hurt on both sides of the equation. But it's important to note that the members, etc., it's not about 15 slip owners, as you would be spun to believe. It's about members like the Karzinskis, these folks who don't even have a boat, who are trying to build a better Tiverton, a better future for Tiverton. It's not about themselves, it's about children and families. Myself and my family have been very fortunate to have the Tiverton Yacht Club as a neighbor. Tiverton Yacht Club has been a great resource to us and to many families to live, to have fun, and to find joy in life. Prior to Mr. Campbell purchasing the property between myself and the property, Arthur Ryan, who was a great old gentleman, owned the property, and for years my children ran through his property. Sales were on his lawns. It was a nice environment. And I hope it can be that environment again, even with the neighbors that are there today, because that's where it belongs. Again, I'm sure there are hard feelings on both sides, but I know it can be fixed. The good people at Tiverton Yacht Club, and I believe the neighbors are good, and I think once this gets put behind them, and there's some change, and you've got to move forward. This is 7 years. Something has to be done now. I'm sure Mr. Campbell has been offended in the past, has been his family members, if you heard tonight, but the Yacht Club family has also been tremendously affected. The children standing in the rain, in the mud for 7 years, it's absurd at this point. But it's a shame that so much energy and time has been invested in an endeavor to prevent Tiverton Yacht Club from being rebuilt. So, with that said, we are here tonight, and Tiverton Yacht Club has been forced to resort to this type of hearing to be able to rebuild after 7 years. And it's a shame. It's a shame. It's that simple. It's all about shame. This is all a shame, is what it's turned into. I can only hope that people will put this behind them, that the Yacht Club will have the opportunity to rebuild and grow. I'm requesting that the zoning change be approved so that the Yacht Club can rebuild. The children deserve it, the families deserve it, Tiverton needs it and deserves it. It's that simple. And again, regarding the values of properties, and we're not going to depress the value of my home 2 doors down or the other properties I have on the waterfront. We can listen to experts all day long. It's a bunch of nonsense. It's a beautiful place. Let the Yacht Club be rebuilt. Please end the 7 years of the financial drain so they can have a home. 1,300 square feet for kids, so instead of standing in the tent, in the mud, and the dirt for 7 years, they can have a 1,300 square foot house to go under a roof. It's that ridiculous. It's been reduced to. And it's not about the 15 members who have little boats on the dock. It's about the children and the families in a special place preserved in Tiverton for future generations. That's what this is all about. Thank you very much.
There look to be 3 more Tiverton Yacht Club witnesses. So if it please the council, we would, again, as I mentioned, have the proponents complete and then start after they're finished.
Madam President, I think unless somebody has something new to contribute, I would like to give Mr. Campbell some time.
I was just going to say the same thing. If anyone has anything different to say beyond what we've all heard here tonight in support of the Yacht Club, I would appreciate those types of comments, because it's now 10:15 and we need now to conclude this meeting, only to, if we have to, expand, go into another night if we have to. Yeah, George, I believe there are other people that were in
You
front
said I
of
got
me.
something different. I said I got something different.
Hello, my name is Dylan Rodriguez, Lawton Avenue, 53 Lawton Avenue. And you asked for something different, and I think we've had a lot.
Please.
Excuse me?
Brief.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. We've had a lot of people here with taller people and a little older people. We haven't had any products of the yacht club. I'm a product of the yacht club as much as one can be. I started sailing when I was 7, I think, in 1997. And 13 years later, I'm teaching sailing now at the Tiverton Yacht Club. I made all my friends, well, a lot of my friends at the Tiverton Yacht Club, and I think my first girlfriend came from the Tiverton Yacht Club. The one thing that I'd like to push here is that when someone in Tiverton wants a book, they go to the library, and when they want to get a coffee, they go to Coastal Roasters. And when I want some to eat somebody else's pizza or to go and hang out with a lot of excellent people, I go to the Tiverton Yacht Club.
Thank you.
Thank you.
My name is Brendan Pryor, and I'm also same with Dylan, product of Yacht Club, and it has affected me very positively. I grew up there. I had swimming lessons as a child and sailing lessons also, and that really helped me progress. It helped me get into Bishop Stang High School. I became on varsity sailing team there, and from there I went on to varsity sailing also at Uncut College, and now I'm an environmental student there, and now during the summer months I've become sailing more on a progressive level, sailing on bigger boats, faster boats, and also the Yacht Club has given me a lot of other people that I've known that their communities are not as tight and they're not as close together as Tiverton is. And the Yacht Club has really built up this community. And for kids to stand up, for our age, for kids to come up and stand up for something they believe in, I think it shows really importance in it.
Thank you.
Hi, I'm Jamison Toolin of 69 Nantucket Road. I grew up learning from my brother how to sail over the Tiverton Yacht Club at a very young age, and my other brother Billy. But Tiverton Yacht Club was just a way of life for me growing up. It was something that, it was just absolutely incredible being able to go down there and learn. It was just such a family environment. And over the years, I've seen how much it changed, and I grew up with the clubhouse there, and then I was there the day that it was burning down, and it was just such a sad feeling to see everybody's faces and everything while it was being put out. But I hope to see something for generations after me, my children, their children, something to be put up, and just see how it goes from there.
Thank you.
My name is George. I live at 63 Stony Hollow. I just want to make it short. I used to be a member of the Yacht Club, so I want to say how much I love it. My kids learn swimming and all that thing. But I just want to tell you, last July, I bought a piece of property on the water in Tiverton. And it's an old gas station. Everybody hates it. Everybody wants it out of there. How can we get rid of it? And I said to them at the time, we have a people on those boards in this town, between the council, the planning board, the zoning board. If you put something beautiful, they'll see through it and they'll see if it's important for the town. And 2 weeks ago, every single board in this town approved my plan. Please continue the good work. We need something like that in town. Thank you.
Sorry to add to all these comments that you've been listening to tonight. I'll be as brief as I can. I'm Patricia Sullivan from the Tiverton Conservation Commission, and tonight I'm speaking as the Vice President for the Alliance to Preserve Tiverton's Quality. John Foley, our president, was unable, unfortunately, to be here, so I'm speaking on John's behalf and on behalf of the Alliance Board of Directors, and I'm also speaking as a longtime resident of Tiverton. The Alliance supports and encourages the preservation of Tiverton's natural resources, environment, culture, and scenic character. We ask the Council to support the Tiverton Yacht Club request to create a waterfront-related zone on the east side of Riverside Drive. It is unfortunate that issues involving the replacement of the Yacht Club building have reached such a daunting level of complexity and irritation, and these issues need to be settled. We are aware of how important the environment in every neighborhood in Tiverton is to the people who live there. We also believe that the Tiverton Yacht Club needs to function fully. In our opinion, the Yacht Club is not just another organization in the community. It is a cultural entity in Tiverton and has been a part of the town's history for many years. Though not a public organization, it serves the community in a variety of ways, and some of the persons in Yacht Club leadership positions have given long-term commendable service to the town. The club does not introduce strangers into the Riverside Drive neighborhood. Its membership is primarily Tiverton residents, neighbors, and friends. Our town is a waterfront community and has very limited waterfront available to the public or available to the Yacht Club. Where else might the club be located in Tiverton, if not in this long-time Yacht Club area? Actually, as many of you may know, a Yacht Club area dating back to the early 1900s. In the current era, many Tiverton neighborhoods risk being aggravated by a variety of activities, ongoing or occasional, a potential disturbance of peace and quiet. Outdoor music, late-night events, noise pollution caused by illegal motorcycles, and so on and so on. There are very specific laws in Tiverton to deal with all of these circumstances. The proposed zoning amendment is supported by the Harbor Commission, by the town planner, by the planning board, and it is supported as well by the Alliance to Preserve Tiverton's Quality. Thanks for listening. Thank you.
My name is Lee Muddy, and I live on 630 Old Colony Terrace in Tiverton. We've lived in Tiverton for 20 years. We belong to the Yacht Club for about 18. We have a sailboat. We enjoy sailing, and our children and our grandchildren enjoy the water and boating also. In all respects to Mrs. Campbell and the children being annoying to her, I find that as I get older, children are apt to be annoying to me, and I don't think the parents take full responsibility these days. But I think the fact that the Yacht Club has had to keep the sailing program going and the swimming program going under very difficult circumstances. And I think when we have our Yacht Club rebuilt and we get better organized, the children will be better supervised. And I think that the Campbells and the Morans both have had time to use the Yacht Club in the earlier days. And now that they're getting to the point they don't use it and they don't care about the rest of us using it, after all, they aren't going to be here forever. and the yacht club can be part of Tiverton for a long time if they're allowed to rebuild and offer sailing and swimming to the children. Thank you.
Charlie Smith, 128 Riverside, lifetime member of the town. Spent more years on Riverside Drive than, there's only one other guy in the room that spent more time on the drive than I have. I swam on the beach before it was a club, when the Browns lived there. Traffic being what it is, and the road being narrow, it's a pain in the neck. People constantly in the streets, they give the neighbors and the people that drive by the same respect that they give you in not applauding. They've used up half your time just applauding. So that goes day by day. Kids in the street. When I came here tonight, there were 2 cars at the end of the dock parked in the road. They're constantly in the road. Kids, cars, unloading gear. I've got pictures in the snow. The only time it's quiet down there is in the wintertime. I understand kids need a place to sail. I sailed, I swam. There are other places to do that. I realize that the club has got a problem. They've had a problem for years. They never addressed it before. It's only recently that they've asked, what's going on? Somebody's going to get hurt down there. And somebody needs to be there. I've had 5-year-old kids tell me, okay, pal, you can go. I don't take orders from 5-year-old kids. And when I tooted the horn, his 8-, 9-year-old sister said, come up here. The kids come down the stairs continually. There's cars in the road. It's narrow right there. Parking is a problem. I work for the utility. If we had a vehicle that had 1 tire on a white line or over a white line, they towed it or tagged it, or we had to get flaggers. Cars are constantly in the road. It's a narrow road. Now you take if I have to leave to the south, I got to go through that. North, now we're building a bridge. It gets even worse. The boat ramp, that's another issue in itself. It's a very tight road. It's very manageable if everybody would stay out of the street. I realize these people need some place to play. They're playing where I live. Unlike Cardi, took Jimmy and I a year to straighten out the parking at the bottom of Quaker Avenue. It's never been enforced down there. The chief doesn't want to do anything down there now. It's a tight spot. If they use their heads, they could all do something. But arguing back and forth, there's good and bad on both sides. I don't support the club, the zoning. I don't want my zoning changed. It's been that way for over 100 years. Nothing's been wrong other than these guys. It seems like every time they want to do something, they go get a change or find somebody on some board or some commission, and they work a deal. I don't know how legit any of it is, but it's exasperating when you go to the town, you go to these people, and nothing ever happens. Something's got to be done. It's in your hands. To me, it looks like spot zoning on a bigger spot, or the good of the many at the expense of the few. Well, I'm not few. I've been there 65 years. I'd like some relief too. Thank you.
Madam President, it looks like we're at a break point, and in order to give those opposing the situation opportunity to speak when they're fresh, I would propose that we continue this until July 14th.
I was wondering if we should have a separate night. 14th is our...
No, the 19th. Would it be?
Excuse me, 19th.
The 19th, okay.
19th? What is July the 19th?
July the 19th. That's the third Monday. That's the third Monday in July.
Yes.
Just to continue this hearing.
Madam President, if I may, I feel it does a disservice to both sides to drag it on that long. I would recommend that we have a special meeting.
That is a special calendar up here. July
There would be a special meeting if we did it the 19th.
I mean, prior to the 19th.
I'm sorry?
I think to drag it out to July 19th is a disservice to both sides. I would propose that we have a special meeting to hear the rest of this at a much sooner date than
That's
July
fine.
19th.
Do we have that? Is that in the form of a motion?
I
or-
make that a motion.
Okay.
Did you make that?
There's a motion
Oh, it's a motion on the floor, all right. So we'll have to vote on this motion.
Yes, I'll second the motion. That is a special night. We have successive meetings right now, Monday, the following Monday, and the following is 4th.
So the 19th would be the next available
Right.
special meeting night.
And we just dedicate it to finish this up.
So, yeah. Is that, okay, so we have a motion and a second.
I think you did. He made the motion, and Louis
Right,
made the
Louis
second.
seconded it, right. Is there any further discussion? Seeing none? All those in favor of continuing this public hearing to the date certain on the third Monday in July, which would be the 19th, please raise your right hand. All those opposed? Motion passes.
Will the meeting be exclusively for the Tiverton Yacht Club issue?
Yes.
And I will be yours, Mr. Campbell. Seems to
And you
me.
can start fresh.
And I did not mean to be disrespectful.
No,
to the
not at
listener.
all.
It was very distracting.
Okay, so we'll need to continue on to the next item on the agenda. Oh, you,
Some of us have just questions on the ordinance itself.
we'll bring them up then.
On the 19th.
On the 19th.
Can we have someone from the Board of Aldermen?
On the 19th.
I think that's mine.
And that's provided we can use Did we adjourn? Well, can't fit this many people at the town hall.
I'll have to check with you.
Okay, thanks.
Town administrator, announcements, comments, questions?
I mean, we have to check with you.
Bang that mallet, Don.
What's left on the agenda? Town administrator, announcements, comments, questions?
I'd just like to make the council aware of the fact that there is a cell tower being erected on the Aruda Farm on Stafford Road.
What being erected?
There is a base for a cell tower being erected on the Aruda Farm on Stafford Road.
I'm sorry, Mr. Administrator, I can't hear you.
Can't hear you.
I'm speaking into the mic. I'm not sure what else I can do.
Talk louder.
Louder. Okay. I'd like to make the council aware of the fact that there is a cell tower being erected on the Aruda Farm on Stafford Road. The base is under construction currently.
It's a cell tower.
Yeah.
So the wind?
No, for telephone, cell phone. There is going to be a rigid plastic drop-off Saturday, June the 19th, between 8 and 1 p.m. at the DPW on Industrial Way. Acceptable items will be hard plastic items like plastic buckets with metal handles, plastic drums, totes, garbage cans of all sizes, milk crates, laundry baskets, lawn furniture, pet carriers, etc., all large plastic hard plastic items. We have been notified that we will be having 4 firemen retire by the end of this fiscal year. The Senior Center will be having a strawberry social on June the 25th. Anyone interested can call the Senior Center at 625-6790 for more details. The sewer line that was being undermined, we have given a contract to, I have it here. We have awarded a contract to Aldinger Associates for $6,500 to prepare an engineering estimate of repair. It's due ASAP. Funds, the report is due as soon as possible. Funds from this will be from the tip bond erosion account, and any reimbursement we get from FEMA will go back to the erosion account. The sinkholes, we have 2 sinkholes at Inland Fuel. These are sinkholes over our 36-inch roadway drainage line. Due to the emergency of the nature of the emergency, we have been working with FEMA. FEMA asked us to call 3 bidders, which we did from our licensed street repair. FEMA reviewed the bids and authorized the work to the low bidder, which is J&A Landscaping, at $6,000. We will have to fund 25% of that repair, which is equal to $1,500. That's all I have.
Thank you. The council have any comments, announcements, or questions?
These are without doubt the most uncomfortable chairs in the world. This is absolute torture.
Town solicitor, announcements or comments?
Yes, just one thing, just want to make the council aware regarding the litigation with Pelletier and Tiger Tree. There was a hearing on the motions. There were cross motions for summary judgment. We were trying to seek an injunction to stop the activity while the case is pending, and they were trying to stop our enforcement actions. And as far as our request for the stay, the judge denied it, basically on the grounds that there wasn't irreparable harm. The town has a remedy in the fact that we can impose a fine of up to $500 a day if we're ultimately successful, and that was considered an adequate remedy at law. So the stay was not granted. The request of Tiger Tree to stay any of the town's enforcement action was also denied. So we'll be going forward with further court action on that.
Thank you.
There'll be further litigation stuff next week in executive session.
Thank you. There being no further action at this time, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor? Meeting adjourned.